All right, let's come to order. Good evening, everyone.
I'm almost glad that I didn't have you.
Good evening.
Nice one.
Welcome to the March 22nd meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education. The board meeting actually began this afternoon at 4 p.m. with work sessions that continued until about 6:25. The first one was on the middle school redesign project, where we spent, I guess, close to an hour. The second one was on infrastructure assessment, really learning about good work that is going on, reviewing our buildings, our physical facilities for where we need to invest more heavily, where we may have aging infrastructure and opportunities for improvement. And then the last piece was on budget priorities for Vision 2020 and an idea about a payment in lieu of taxes, tax increment financing opportunity. No action was taken in any of those meetings, so in the board's first 2.5 hours of the meeting we took no action. We're now ready to start with our traditional moment of silence. Tonight I would like to ask that we include in our moment of silence the father-in-law of board member Chuck Hadaway, who passed away at approximately midnight this morning. Mr. Darrell Ward is Mr. Hadaway's father-in-law, so the board shares its sympathies and condolences with Chuck and Melissa. And with that, let us proceed into our moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you. We will now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Stephanie Horn will now read our vision statement.
All Jefferson County Public School students graduate prepared, empowered, and inspired to reach their full potential and contribute as thoughtful, responsible citizens of our diverse, shared world.
Thank you, Steph. I'd now like to introduce Terry Robinson to present our recognitions and resolutions.
Dr. Hargan's Board Chair David Jones Jr. and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, this evening we have the honor of receiving 2 student demonstrations of learning from and recognizing some of our district's most creative, academically talented, and distinguished students. We began with the recognition of Grace Davis, a student at Great House Chirac Traditional Elementary School, who is one of 2 top Kentucky youth selected to receive the Prudential Spirit of Community Award. In honor of her outstanding volunteer service, Grace received a $1,000 award and an engraved silver medallion and an all-expenses-paid trip in early May to Washington, D.C. for 4 days of national recognition events. Grace raised more than $140,000 over the past 4 years to care for babies born prematurely by distributing piggy banks to students in her community and encouraging them to fill them up. Her idea for her volunteer project came to her when she saw a piggy bank in someone's home and a child feeding it change until it was full. Board Chair David Jones Jr. and Assistant Superintendent Michelle Dillard, please come forward to congratulate Grace. Joining in the recognition is her principal and parent, Carla Davis. Please come forward. I would also like to ask her father and her brother to stand from their seats to be recognized as well. Next, we have the honor of receiving a student demonstration of learning from and recognizing Slaughter Elementary School students for winning second place honors in the Kentucky VEX IQ Robotics Competition. The school also earned enough points in the state competition to compete in the 2016 VEX Worlds competition. Slaughter Elementary students will share what they have learned by participating in the robotics competition and will provide a demonstration of their work with robotics. Before the Slaughter students begin their presentation, we will have an opportunity to view their video.
3, 2, 1.
We got a claw ball here trying to pick up some balls. We got 2 overs so far. There's 2 balls. Awesome slaughter box. Look at you go. All right. 2 more. Here we go. Oh, maybe 3. Here we go. 2 more. Claw ball. Clear that ramp. Clear that ramp. Clear that ramp. Did you guys switch robots? All right, got 2 more coming in over here. Guys, you got 19, 18, 17, 16. All right, let's go. Both of you on that ramp. Come on, let's go. Both of you stay up. Stay up there.
All right, we're getting started off. All 4 robots are moving. Looks like one of them is about to clear they're clearing them. Both of them are clearing them. Awesome. We're getting good. They're getting good, guys. I can see them. Amazing. They're doing amazing. All right, so these teams have just got their robots this year. So switch, driver switch. So we're about to get a double here.
Go Park,
We're going for a double. We're doing a reset. So we got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, great job. Great job, guys.
All the other robots, let's see, and new schedule.
Thank you. Students Jacqueline Garcia, Carlos Oresto Gomez, Carmen Martinez, Christopher Garcia Gonzalez, and Miguel Guerrero, please come forward to begin your presentation.
This was Slaughter's first year with the robotics team. We also started in September, and we worked really hard and learned a lot. We competed in the VEX IQ division. We built a robot that can carry balls over the fence, knock balls off the ramp, and park a robot onto the ramp. We built the robot to complete these tasks. We learned about the STEM topics: science, technology, engineering, and math. My teammates will tell you more about that.
We use engineering design process. We thought about what we need a robot to do. We made plans. We built the robot. We tested and made improvements to the design. We really had it to work on the basket design. We designed several, like a basket holds 6 balls. We thought about how many balls it could hold. We thought how much weight too heavy and it will tip over. We test each design until we found the best one.
We use a lot of technology in robotics. We have learned about programming, like for example, first we learned about coding. using a website called code.org. Programming is using codes to tell the robot what to do. Then we use what we learned to program the robot to do certain tasks. We figured out how long it took the robot to travel through one box on the field. We also needed to think about how much power to use. For example, 50% of the power went straight but wasn't as fast. 100% of the power didn't always go straight. We had to determine angles and turns, like how many rotations of the motor for each type of turn it made. We also used maths in robotics. We worked with angles in programming turns. We also used decimals when programming how far we needed the robot to drive. We had to consider the weight of the basket and also the actual robot because it was important when driving up the ramp. We had learned a lot this year, not only about technology, math, and engineering, but also good sportsmanship. We have competed against some really good schools. It has been a great experience. The SWATterbots won the regional competition. We placed second in state championship. Now we're heading to the VEX Worlds competition. Thank you for letting us come tonight and tell you a bit about our team.
Board Member Dr. Lisa Wilner and Assistant Superintendent Dr. Paige Hartstern, please come forward to congratulate these outstanding students. Joining in the recognition is their teacher, Brittany Armstrong, and Principal Kathy Pendleton. Ms. Rowland, please come forward, Assistant Principal. I'd also like to ask the parents of these outstanding students to please stand and be recognized. Parents and family members, please stand to be recognized. Thank you.
Good job.
We also have the pleasure of receiving a student demonstration of learning from Mukhan Venakatakrishnan, a DuPont Manual High School student, on his combined hearing test and hearing aid invention that cost $60. He came up with the idea because his grandfather, who lives in India, has hearing loss. It took Mukhan more than 1 year to create and test the device. He also wrote the computer code for the device. The device is not only cost effective, but it also gets rid of the need of a doctor to test the hearing of patients. The device tests and programs itself to be the hearing aid for the patient. Mukhan was presented with the opportunity to share his invention at the 3rd annual JCPS Idea Festival, which is student-led and student-oriented. Mukhan, please come forward to begin your presentation.
You can stand over there. Yeah, that's fine.
So yeah, I'm Mukhan. I go to DuPont Manual High School. I'm a junior there. And today I'll be telling you a little bit about these devices. So.
Mukhan, you may want to pull the microphone up to you a little bit more. Okay.
So the devices.
Great.
So, like was just mentioned, the idea came from my grandfather. So I don't know if you can tell, but that's me and that's my grandfather. Me a few years ago. So my grandfather has hearing loss. He lives in India, and I'm sure a lot of you know it takes a while for people to admit they have hearing loss. But once he did, we started finding treatment options, and it was really hard to find. Finding an audiologist is difficult, and then once you get there in India, they rip you off. And so the entire experience really prompted me to look into the issue of hearing loss a lot more, and what I found blew me away. 360 million people today suffer from hearing loss in the world, and out of that, 324 million people are untreated for that hearing loss. So putting that in perspective, the US population is 316 million people. So there are more people untreated for their hearing loss than there are people in the entire United States. And that's primarily because of two problems: affordability and accessibility to auditory health care. So let's break that down. The affordability comes primarily from the hearing aids. So hearing aids today cost $1,500 for a pair, and that's an average price. So obviously there's a lot more expensive, a lot less expensive, but $1,500 is pretty standard. Keeping that in mind, the median income in India is $616 a year. So a person can save all their money, spend nothing for 2 years, and they still wouldn't be able to afford a full pair of hearing aids. In terms of accessibility, so these numbers over here, these are the number of doctors per 1,000 people for some developed countries. So you can see a standard is pretty much 2 doctors per 1,000 people. That's a developed nation's number. India's is 0.7, Bolivia 0.4, and then Liberia's is less than 0.2. So obviously accessibility to healthcare is a problem, and these are normal doctors. Audiologists are much more specialized and much more difficult to find, so you can pretty much half these numbers, and that's what you're looking at. So why does this matter? Hearing loss has 3 main impacts. The functional impact, so they're not able to do normal things in society. For example, can you imagine driving without hearing loss, not being able to hear a siren, going to the groceries, not being able to hear a cashier, stuff like that. The societal impact, people are really ostracized, and that was really what got my grandfather. So the long distance calls from India are as it is patchy, and then you take into account the hearing loss, and it's basically impossible to understand anything. And finally, the economic impact. Especially in developing areas where jobs are mainly manufacturing, you need your hearing to be a productive economic member of society. So hearing loss and its treatment are really comprised of 2 components. The hearing test, which measures how much hearing loss a patient has, and that requires the presence of a doctor, and then the hearing aid, which actually treats that hearing loss. So keeping that in mind, I started looking for a solution. How do I solve this problem of affordability and accessibility? But it's a really daunting task. Like, how do you make a hearing aid from scratch and eliminate the doctor and make it cheap, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I started by looking at my broad goals. I wanted to reduce the price and make the user completely self-reliant, and that's a euphemism for get rid of the doctor. Sorry to any doctors in the audience. So those are my broad goals, but obviously you can't really work towards a technical goal when these are your goals, so I had to break it down further. So I needed to work for hardware, so hardware would reduce the cost of the device, and then the software would, again, replace the doctor. Again, still pretty difficult to solve. So I got it down to my final steps. The signal processor, which is a specialized piece of hardware that is made to take in audio signals and manipulate them however you program it. And finally, the code, which is the software, and that would be able to replace the doctor, run the hearing aid, run the hearing test, etc. So I started with the hardware. I tested, these are the names of these devices. These are 3 digital signal processors, or 4 digital signal processors I tested, and I tested them to see if they were able to support a hearing aid based on a few criteria I devised from studying how hearing aids work today. And I found my hardware. It's the Teensy 3.1. It's completely open source. It's $15, and it's a super powerful processor. You can run pretty much anything on it, and I guess I'll show you in a sec. That's actually what's on those devices right there. It's a small rectangular board on the top. So I assembled the hardware. This was my first prototype, and I took an audio jack. You can see it. It's the black thing right there, 3.5 millimeter, the same one on your phone, and that's where the audio comes out from. So I put together the hardware, the digital signal processor, but that was only half of the solution. The much harder part was the software. How do I replace a human being, run a hearing test, run a hearing aid, all with software I write? So I got started. So this is the completed software. This is part of the completed software. The actual software did not fit on 4 slides, so I put some of it on here. So I'll go through a few parts of it. What I'm about to show you are functions. Functions are basically little pieces of code that do a job. That's all they are. So this function is called the play file function. So for a hearing test, in the doctor's office, they play sounds to you and see if you can hear them or not, and that's what this piece of code does. So it takes a sound file and it plays it back to the user, and then they enter whether they can hear the sound or not on the 2 buttons on that device. That's basically the bulk of the hearing test. The calibration function, this is actually a pretty cool piece of code. So a real hearing test is run in a soundproof booth, but obviously I cannot sell a soundproof booth. So what I did was I loaded the sound of my dad's hands rubbing onto the device, and then the user rubs their hand at the same time and until the volume matches. And that way the device is calibrating for ambient noise. It's just a simple way to get it set to the right level. And then finally, this is probably the most important chunk of code in the whole thing. This is the mixed gain function, and it determines how much amplification the device provides based on how much hearing loss the patient has. So this is the doctor part of the code. again, really sorry to any audiologists in the office. So again, all of those little pieces come together and you attack them individually and you piece it together, and finally you get all 1,500 lines of code here. So basically what I did was I took a hearing test, I took the soundproof booth, I took the audiologist, I took the results of the hearing test, I took the hearing aid, and I took the audiologist that programs the hearing aid, and I put it into one low-cost, so less than $60, integrated device that's both a hearing test and a hearing aid, and it's completely open source, which means everything I use is available on the internet and you can find the schematic yourself. So why does it matter? This is a great idea and all, but like, what can you do? Well, my takeaway was you can do pretty much anything with the internet, like anything. So I went into this project not knowing how to program. I didn't know basically how to use my computer, honestly. And I learned how to program off the internet for free. Everything I did here was free. So I use Code Academy. I recommend everybody here learns how to program. Even if you never use it, it's just a good thing to know. And then I started working with Arduino. So the Teensy is an Arduino-based device. Arduino is just a company that makes these pieces of electronics. They're made to teach people how to program, use electronics, and just become educated. I recommend everybody try to use one of those. And really my big thing was just to make something. Even if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how to start, things kind of work themselves out if you just get started and attack the problem. That's it. Thank you. Wow.
Board Vice Chair Diane Porter, please congratulate Booth Khan joining in the recognition, Assistant Superintendent Amy Dennis, and Principal Jerry Mays.
Yeah, that was great.
His family is here with him tonight. Would you please stand to be recognized? Excellent presentation. Thank you. Dr. Hargens and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, this concludes our recognitions for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Congratulations to the students and to the teachers and principals and to the parents who've been recognized tonight. Before we invite students, parents, and staff to leave, I think I just want to make one other point about Mukund's presentation. That's a great presentation. Talk about something that nobody on this board except Chris Brady, who had heard it before, knew anything about. But at the end of it, complexity was made graspable at a certain level. That's a really, really important skill. So thank you also for demonstrating that. We really appreciate it. So, yeah. All right. It is our custom at this time to invite basically anybody who has homework to do or to oversee to feel free, or to grade, to feel free to leave if you would like. You're also free to stay and enjoy the rest of the meeting, but students, teachers, anybody who would like to leave, we'll take a brief pause and allow you to do that.
Well, he put a limit on 4. He wants to make the rules.
All right, let's come back to order, and I think we need a motion to receive the recognitions. Is there such a motion? Mr. Brady moves, Diane seconds. All in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Next, we need a motion to approve the agenda that we have tonight. Mr. Brady moves, Dr. Wilner seconds. All in favor? That also passes unanimously. Finally, a motion to approve the minutes of the March 8th meeting. Steph moves, Chris seconds. All in favor? Passes unanimously again. So we're done with the preliminaries, and it's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Hargens to deliver the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chair Jones and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to present the superintendent's report. As requested by the board, I plan to use the time tonight to bring you up to speed on initiatives of importance in the district and how those initiatives align with Vision 2020. First, as we discussed in our last board meeting, the district is busy working to reconcile seclusion and restraint data with the Kentucky Department of Education's Infinite Campus system. That process is ahead of schedule, and I would like to personally thank Dr. Dina Dossett for her commitment and diligence in moving this project forward. I would like to update you on where we are in this project as of today. The good news, many of our reports were able to be uploaded directly to Infinite Campus after Dr. Dossett's discussion with KDE. Right now, Dr. Dossett's team is reviewing each individual report that wasn't able to be uploaded because of a data field that did not align with Infinite Campus. Her team is gathering that information from each school, and the rest of the upload will be complete by the first week of April. Communication about the Infinite Campus process has been sent to all principals and assistant principals. The behavior manual was also sent to staff again and has been posted online. The data issue is important. The issue of seclusion and restraint is the substantive issue. When we have a complete, clear picture from the data, I will notify the board and we can discuss next steps on how to move forward as a district. We have also contacted our internal auditor, Dean Dorton, to begin the audit of our data management system to look at the district's data points and determine risks and how the district can ensure accuracy and transparency in its reporting. Jim Tenza is here with us tonight to provide some details about Dean Dorton's testing approach. Mr. Tenza?
Thank you. Board, I'd just like to share a little bit of information about our approach, timing and scope of the audit. We have started the audit process, and we started with doing a risk assessment of the data. And our plan is to substantially complete the audit and before the next board meeting in April, and provide some preliminary results of that testing before we issue the final report. And what our focus is on is specifically on the data that's being provided to the state through the state report card. And based on our preliminary risk assessment, the key data that we're going to focus in on is that of the behavioral and safety information on the report card. So in our risk assessment, we looked at a lot of different things. We looked at the data that requires multiple people to enter the data or to capture it, the complexity of the data, the subjectivity of the data, whether there's multiple systems involved, and prior experiences with errors and from prior audits. So we looked at all that information, and based on that, we think the most significant risk is the behavioral and safety data in the report card. So with that, our key procedures are, besides doing the risk assessment, we're going to verify the restraint seclusion data has been properly input and downloaded to the state report card. We're going to verify the reasons why it wasn't properly reported to begin with. We're going to look at and gain an understanding of the processes that go into capturing and reporting that data to figure out where there's weaknesses in controls, where there's risks of things being misreported, and where there's inefficiencies. And then we're also going to look at the back end of this, who's reviewing this information, how is it being reviewed, when is it being reviewed, why wasn't it caught in that review process. We think that's really important, not only to capture the data and report it, but then that we're properly reviewing that information and using that information appropriately. And then lastly, we're going to assess how management is utilizing the data and whether they're identifying trends and issues or problems with that. So that's our main focus. And like I said, we plan on having a preliminary report to the board before the next meeting.
Thank you for the update. I appreciate it.
Can we ask, I'm sorry, questions, I think, at this point? And I would say, just for clarity, I think I understand the process review element of this, and at the end of this, we will understand that the data is being gathered, and that you guys have helped verify that it is not only being captured and reported properly, but that someone is looking at it. But who is going to look at the instances that were not reported and opine on the substantive appropriateness of the restraints and seclusions that have now been identified and are in these reports? And I don't know who that question is to. But the question of were the students treated properly is, I think, before the board and the community right now, and I don't understand who's going to answer that.
Well, and actually, we will answer that as soon as we have a clear picture of the data. And right now, we believe that every incident was recorded, but in a different database. But as soon as we have a clear picture of the data with the range of restraints and seclusions, then we will be back to the board with that picture. And as I said, what will we do differently in the future or next steps?
Okay, but it will be not just the process, but also the substantive treatment that was rendered.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tenza.
So I think the district's swift and transparent reaction to rectify this issue aligns with the core values of our strategic plan as we strive every day for excellence. I also believe that this board meeting and the work sessions tonight are examples that our strategic plan is a document that is a work that is working, or that is working. And you are seeing it in action in everything we do tonight. In this afternoon's budget work session, you received an update on the budget. This year, we implemented zero-based budgeting and required budget requests to be aligned with priorities in the strategic plan. In addition, you received a briefing from Dr. Razor about the facilities review his team has been conducting over the last several months. The review looks at the condition and capacity of our schools, which aligns with our key focus area, improving infrastructure and integrating systems. We've also created, as we promised, a district-wide project management tool to update the cabinet and the board members on key deliverables and timelines for those deliverables. I think this aligns with the strategic plan's vision to develop high-performing teams that are continuously improving. It also provides increased accountability and ownership of the projects that are in the strategic plan. Later in this meeting, you will have a briefing on the new JCPS website that will be unveiled to the public during the first week of April. This website and ensuing mobile app were outlined as priorities in Strategy 3.2.2 as we work every day as a district to increase access to information and improve communications with our stakeholders, parents, and students. In this board meeting, you will also be considering the new middle school plan developed with community input, which I believe is aligned with our focus area of learning, growth, and development. I was honored over the past 2 weeks to host Senator Rand Paul and Lieutenant Governor Janine Hampton in our schools. Senator Paul visited Valley High School and Lieutenant Governor Hampton visited Zachary Taylor Elementary and Westport Middle. Both visits created opportunities to build on our core values of collaboration. And finally, it was an honor to stand alongside Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher this week as he announced plans for this year's Give a Day initiative. Last year, JCPS had 100% participation from our schools, and our students donated more than 802 hours of service. That is almost 2 years of service in 1 week. The project organized by our students last year included Ballard High School raising more than $46,000 for pediatric oncology research, Bick Elementary organizing a school-wide collection of items for the Kentucky Refugee Ministries. Students at Coral Ridge held a book drive for children at Wayside and Home of the Innocents. Farnsley Middle participated in a Brightside community cleanup and planted healthy vegetables. Jefferson County Traditional Middle School provided tens of thousands of meals for or through the Kids Against Hunger program. Newburgh Middle School planted an urban garden, and the students at our TAP school for pregnant or parenting mothers collected makeup, nail polish, and cosmetics for victims of domestic violence. Participation by our students helped set the world record here in Louisville for acts of compassion. At a press conference to announce this year's initiative, we helped get a head start on the Build-A-Bed project, and our students from Mezquite Middle School wrote notes on the wood slats that will be used to build 100 beds for children in Louisville. The notes read, "You can fly, and tomorrow will be a brand new day." I am thrilled young children in need will wake up in beds built by JCPS and with notes to inspire them written by our students. Our core values of stewardship, creativity, and opportunity are showcased by students who participate in these service projects. I am proud of our students in the classroom. I am proud of them as citizens who give back to this community. This is our strategic plan in action. These are our students, and I'm incredibly proud to be their superintendent. Board Agenda Item 9T, approval of participation in the National Writing Project College Ready Writers Program, has been pulled for this meeting. We'll bring it back at a later date. The remaining agenda items will be, I am recommending for approval by the board. So Chair Jones, this concludes my report and my recommendation for approval of the consent agenda later in tonight's meeting.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Hargens. The next part of the agenda is to move on to the action items. There are two action items. The first is a recommendation to approve the 2016-17 budget for school requests. There are no speakers who have signed up to talk on this issue. So, Mr. Hudson, would you like to lead, and CFO Harden? Thank you. Again, I would just remind you, we have been through the PowerPoint already, so just, you don't need to take us all the way through it again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're presenting to the board for approval tonight individual school requests that amount to $3,272,000. These are individual teacher assignments and other resources that the school requested in the budget request process. The total project budget request added up to $22 million. We're recommending that this be approved now so that principals can schedule their schools and do what they need to do to get ready for next year. The second item we're recommending is, as you know, and we've talked about before, our ESL community is growing at leaps and bounds, and we need to fund that, and that in order to do that, we need $1.2 million. And then we have an early childhood request here of $3.1 million. You've seen the work that was done 2 meetings ago, or maybe last meeting, I can't remember, where they explained in detail what we're doing. And so that adds up to $7.6 million for approval, is what we're asking for.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions? Is there a motion to approve? Ms. Duncan moves. Is there a second? Okay, Chris seconds. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so that passes 5-1. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the recommendation to approve the middle school redesign proposal. There are 3 speakers on this agenda who have signed up. The first is Kumar Rashad. Kumar Rashad, if you are here, please come forward to address the board. Okay, the second speaker is Councilwoman Fowler. Councilwoman Fowler, thank you for being with us tonight. You'll have 3 minutes, as is our practice. At the end of 2.5 minutes, the bell will sound once, and at the end of 3, it will sound twice. So thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you. So good to be here tonight. My name is Cindy Fowler. I am the council person for the 14th District in far southwest Jefferson County, where Valley High School and Robert Frost are located. I'm here because this issue with our schools out in that area is very important to me. It's important to my constituents and more importantly to those children that must adhere to the plan. I was there a couple of years ago when we first heard the proposal for the Frost and Valley Prep model. And I was for that plan. And I think for the most part that it has been successful. I think that one of the things that we see with this new proposal is that Frost just has got too much overhead for the amount of students that are there. But I think that they have succeeded. You know, I think it was 0.2 of a point they were shy of meeting their goals. So I felt like that was very good. And then with the Valley Prep School, there's not enough space, but yet I hear good things about what went on there at Valley. The new proposal comes with many issues that were discussed at the 3 community meetings. I attended the Valley meeting, and I heard from parents and grandparents alike, and what I heard was concerning and alarming. When I read the new proposal, I didn't see solutions to the concerns that were brought forward for consideration at the community meeting I attended. I did see extra support personnel, more faculty, and mental health specialists, all of which I think should go a long way in addressing some of the needs and concerns expressed in those community meetings. What I didn't see was what most parents were concerned about, and that was the stopping bullying. You know, that I hear that so often, and I know that the families that are listening tonight that go to Stewart, they know that that's a fact. I don't see a new and improved discipline plan where children that disrupt are removed from the classroom so that the children who want to learn can. And on the same note, I don't see a plan for how those disruptive children are approached and coached to help them to be more productive in the classroom. I suggested 2 principals one principal for each grade level. I don't know if that was anything that you all were able to discuss or adhere to. Is that my second dong? Okay, so in closing, let's begin to rectify these things for our students. Let's get it right this time. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, my mic is not on, so apologies. The last speaker on this agenda item is Mark Romines or Romanes. Apologies if I've mispronounced the name. Please correct me. Romines. Okay, Mr. Romines, thank you for being with us tonight. You'll have 3 minutes. 1 bell will ring after 2.5, and 2 will ring at the end of 3. So thank you. You may begin.
Thank you. Dr. Hargens, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a resident of Valley Village. I have seen Robert Frost. I have been Robert Frost. My children went to Robert Frost. My granddaughter is there now. By you basically wanting to take away a school that is helping out a community, and I say community because once you take the school away, you're killing a community. All we have there is an elementary school. We can't use that. That middle school is being used to feed hungry children. It is being used to give clothes and toys to children from a church group we have in the area. By you taking the school away, you're going to cause our property values to depreciate, which you get the taxes off of those properties. But by us losing money, you're going to lose money. By you closing the school, you're killing us. You used the expression a few years ago, you wanted to close the school because of violence, because of the kids being bussed in from Portland. You then used the excuse you wanted to take the kids out of that school because of the pollution from LG&E Mill Creek plant. All right, fine. Now you're using the example, you don't have enough children in the school to cover the cost of the school being run. My suggestion the other evening at the meeting where we had no media, we had nobody there to really back us up, take the 6th grade out of Stewart, put them all at Robert Frost. Keep that building open. Put the 6th or 7th and 8th grade people in Stewart. You've got 2 wings, 7th grade, 8th grade. I don't see why you have to have 3 principals, assistant principals, counselors in one building. The 6th grade academy has proven itself for 2 years straight at that building. That principal has done a fantastic job with those kids. But yet you want to take and you want to move a perfectly good working program and put it in another building. Some people say that building is too far away for them to have to go to. It is the farthest southernmost reaching school in the district. I can't help that. That's the way the county is. But yet, you all want to close this place. I don't know how much LG&E has offered you for that place. I know you've been wanting to close it for a long time. But I'm begging you as a resident, as a person who went to that school, as a person who has seen it. Miss Fowler even went to that school. Please, don't take my school away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romines, for speaking to us tonight. We'll now turn over, Dr. Hargens, to you to introduce the item.
And as Chair Jones said, we spent an hour, almost an hour at a work session, and 2 weeks ago we had a different work session. So what Dr. Beatty and Dr. Hartstern and Dr. Powers and Barbara Dempsey are going to do is just give you the highlights and the recommendation.
Hey, good evening. Prior to the board meeting this evening, actually during the work session, some information was asked with regard to some demographic information, some achievement data for Robert Frost and for Stewart Middle, and we did provide you a copy of that prior to meeting, so I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that we did give that to you. As opposed to going through the parts of the presentation, we want to reiterate what our goals of the proposal are, is to improve educational outcomes for students that we know who need it the most. We want to do that by four key components. The first would be to improve our systems approach that we use in those schools, how we deliberately plan for students' academic and social emotional needs. Second, we want to be sure we support our students and their academic and social emotional needs through increases in teaching staff and teacher supports, and then again those social emotional supports that those students need, which surface through our Kentucky Department of Education diagnostic reports, etc. Third, it would be dealing with again supporting our teachers, because we know from the report during the March 8th work session that teachers in our priority schools are we have teachers who lack some experience but who need additional support. And then finally, how do we support our leaders? So those are the 4 design elements. And during the presentation today, we did discuss the moves that were involved that deal specifically with the Frost building and with the creation of a 6th grade and a 7th and 8th grade academy at Stewart Middle, in addition to leaving the incoming 8th grade students at Valley Prep to continue their experience there. So we in order to prevent them from having 3 transitions in 3 years.
Okay, are there questions or comments? Who would like to begin? Linda?
Well, I will begin. These are difficult things because we want to be sure that we've thought all thoughts and before we make major adjustments. And I appreciate so much the time that you all have spent on devising this particular proposal. But one of the things that keeps haunting me is, are we closing Frost to please adults, or are we closing Frost because we have uncovered some special tools that will enhance the performance of 1,200 at-risk kids that we're putting all together? Have we uncovered some big, some special item that we've not done before in our schools? And so for me, it's a very difficult thing. I wish we could spend a little more time exploring some options that even the gentleman referred to. there are so many questions in my mind of why we didn't look at other arrangements, a 6, 7, 8 arrangement with Dr. Stroud there, and then something else at Stewart, where we finally have space to have small class sizes at Frost and have small class sizes at Stewart. So I still have question marks about why we didn't think of these other things so that we could at least vet them, at least talk about them. And I don't feel like that we've really had a chance to do that. So I just wish we could take a little more time to explore some other ways that we could support the academic performance of these students, to make sure that we're doing the best that we can by that, and instead of just closing a school and putting everybody together in another school.
Dr. Harkins, do you or somebody else want to address the question of time pressure or urgency on this, why it's a decision that you recommend is best made now?
Right, and one of the lessons learned, what was really important is lessons learned, and one of the lessons learned was to get a principal in place who can hire staff, and together they can work collaboratively to create a vision. So we feel that, again, we want to make a better situation for next year, 16-17, and getting the principal hired is really important, and giving staff members time to create the vision. Dr. Stroud, Faith Stroud, made a compelling case during the work session that because she's been able to just focus on the 6th grade and the learning needs of 6th graders and what 6th graders are expected to learn, that it has created incredible focus. So concentrating on the 6th grade has been part of the success of Dr. Stroud, and her faith and her staff believe that they can create that environment for even more 6th graders to benefit from. And Dr. Beatty and Dr. Hartstern have done a lot of work with the building. The building, even it's 2 small schools, not one big school, and the building can accommodate it. The 6th graders on one side, the 7th and 8th graders each on their own floor, and there's still room in that building. That building will not be at capacity even when you do those things. So space is really not the issue, and I'll reiterate again, the driver here is achievement, as Dr. Beatty said. That's the reason to make the change, and the reason to make it tonight is that it'll give us time to get a great principal and great staff members on the front end of the hiring process for these students.
Right, and to go a little bit further with that is that we are approaching transfer deadlines for teachers as well, because one of the things that we want to do once we get a leader in place is that we hire staff for Stewart, and we hire additional staff for Frost, and there may be individuals who may say, hey, I'm on board, I'm ready, or they may say, this is not for me, and so that to have the ability to make those options, both for selecting staff for the new school and also provide the additional staff the opportunity to exercise options that they may have.
And sorry, Linda, go ahead.
I was just going to ask in this, Dr. Beatty, could you clarify for us what is something new that's going on in here that we have not tried in other middle school or in other redesigns where we've worked with middle schools primarily on these redesigns? What do you see as the piece that makes this special in terms of academic performance?
I don't think it's one piece. I think it's a combination of several. I think the first thing that we take into consideration is that we want to preserve the concept of a 6th grade academy. That's the first piece. We want to preserve that concept and give the opportunity for students who have experienced some success at Frost, but there's still work to do there. That we're still not completely satisfied with the outcomes at Frost. To do that, that's the first piece. The second is at Valley Prep. We currently partner with KDE to have Office of Teacher Support, where we provide some additional KDE staff members to work shoulder to shoulder with classroom teachers on improving their craft. Because at Valley Prep, we know we have a very young staff, and to provide experienced educators alongside with them. So that master teacher component that you see in the proposal is there, where we add additional master teachers, in addition to to including 10 additional classroom core instructional teachers that will reduce the class sizes and deal with that piece. And then finally, we have at Stewart the beginnings of some work on developing systems for addressing behavior. I know Councilwoman Fowler mentioned bullying and discipline. The school, Stewart this year has begun initial work on their PBIS implementation. So by putting additional PBIS coaches, mental health counseling, in addition to additional professional development days for teachers to learn these things. So I think all of those pieces that we've seen from turnaround efforts in all of our Jefferson County schools, concentrated in an unprecedented manner, is what's new and what's innovative about this proposal.
Well, and I'll just add that the 6th grade academy one-to-one Chromebooks, that this proposal includes expanding that one-to-one on the 6th grade and the 7th and 8th grade academy. And when EQUOC, the Educator Quality Oversight Committee, which is 5 teachers and 5 administrators, presented ways to attract teachers to high-need schools or to priority schools. An element of this is a master teacher, which I think was called in that presentation a hybrid model, where you attract great teachers who teach half the time and coach other teachers half the time. So that was taken directly from the presentation by EQUOC, and they spent a lot of time on coming up with ways. So it has a lot of elements, Ms. Duncan, and as Dr. Beatty said, it's not just one, it's how the elements work together in the 4 systems that Dr. Powers talked about.
So we're going to go next to Ms. Horn, but before we do that, with the board's indulgence, I'd like to put this issue of time pressure completely to bed so that we all understand it. Is it necessary that we approve all elements of the plan tonight, or is it possible, I mean, it is certain that Frost Academy will continue, that Faith Stroud will be the principal of it, and one of the primary goals here that I believe from the body language the board is, totally in support of is that's successful. We want more students to have the benefit from that success. The principal we will be looking for is for a 7th and 8th grade academy. That I think is also pretty clear. Is it necessary to define where everything is, for example, in order to get the process rolling? Because we do not want a replay of starting too late to get the teachers and the principal on board. We're also so does it have to all be, is it an up or down tonight, or is it different pieces?
What we need is the combination of the 6th graders to make a bigger Frost 6th grade academy, and as you said, Faith Stroud is the principal. That staff would stay intact. So that, and then we need to close the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade Stewart and open the 7th and 8th grade academy so we can hire a principal and so they can begin the process of the teachers. The reason that I would say that we want the extra positions is on the front end of the hiring process, you get better, I mean, obviously you want to attract master teachers, so I think that's important. And then there is also in this proposal a project coordinator to actually make sure that everything about this project is implemented with fidelity. That's another lesson learned, so we can bring it back to the board. So we would need that as well.
I think there's also a need to have an understanding of what the overall proposal would look like with additional input and modifications once the leaders are in place to provide a sense of understanding to the staff. If they're going to make the commitment to remain, they want to have an understanding of what this looks like and that it is to fully resource schools with 2 leadership teams. And so that's another critical piece.
Okay, so we don't want to be halfway in and halfway out. We want to make a decision tonight. Okay, thanks. Steph?
When I had talked to Glenn, it was an interesting revelation, I guess I'll say, because it looks like that it was much more an investment in this community to have, unlike the Myers, when Myers was closed, it didn't, the funding would follow the student for a limited time period and then ended. In this scenario, it's like 1,300 would follow for the first year, but then after that, it would still be an ongoing commitment by the district to be funding these priorities for the school. So, you know, that is something that seemed very new and seemed like the board is making an effort to be committed not only to Frost but to Stewart, to Valley, because it feeds into Valley High School. Being my father-in-law was a Valley grad, you know, looking at that, the stronger the middle school feeder, you know, that it does feed into Valley. So it's an interesting thing. The only concern I had looking at it's a question really, does Stewart feed, will the new boundaries, will they be aligned so that the children going to Frost and Stewart, those combined boundaries, will then feed into Valley so that it is that still that community, you know, support there? Are the boundaries aligned for middle and high school?
The middle and high school boundaries, Ms. Horn, are not totally aligned in any of our schools. So there are some students who live in the, they're all going to be, I believe, Network 1 students, so in that high school network where they can make choices within the high school network. But I believe, and I would have to check this to be sure and get back with you, I believe part of that boundary students might go to Doss High School or even Pleasure Ridge Park, but I would have to look at the boundaries exactly.
Yeah,
to see that.
I'd be interested in just getting more information to make sure that, you know, we are investing in Stewart combined boundaries to make sure that we're smart about aligning it, you know, so it is, you know, there seems to be a definite pattern there that is supported by, so, you know, don't want to just combine it and then have it not work together as part of a system.
Okay, Lisa?
So there's a lot about this plan that I really like. There's a lot of the elements that I think are great, and I want to be able to support it. But there are a few things that are holding me back from feeling like I can support it tonight. I might be able to support it in a week, but I don't know that I can support it right now. And so some of the reasons, I just feel like there are some things missing. And one of the things that's missing is student voice. I have not heard one word about how the students feel about this, or how, you know, feels huge to me, like a huge piece that's just been left out. I want to back up and say I really applaud you guys and I applaud the district for the recognition that something needs to change, that the current setup is not working. And so to really be proactive and bold, I really just think that's exactly the right approach. Another few things that are missing aside from student voice, we had a 35, I think, page document that was the 35-page innovation plan, and there was a nice little literature review in there. And one of the things in the lit review was that it talks about research supports small class size and small school size that those are critical to implementing the middle school concept. So we're now combining even though we've got two separate schools within one campus, and I do get that piece, we've got a pretty big 7th and 8th grade academy, and it's a very, very high needs. I think some enormous percentage of these students need remediation, and many of them actually selected Valley Prep because it was a remediation center. So very, very high needs, and it feels like it's contradicting our own research that was presented in the report. So that troubles me. There were a couple of other items. Neighborhood issues between the current Frost and Stewart resides. That was a question that was asked, and the answer is we're currently checking with LMPD and awaiting more information. Do we have that information yet? Oh, great. I would love to hear that piece.
I mean, that's fine, yes. We had Stan Mullen check with LMPD, and they told us that there were no, from looking at the between the actual Frost and current Frost and Stewart resides are geographically contiguous, as well as the satellite resides are geographically contiguous, and so they didn't foresee any. And we know we have experience with issues like that in our district, and we address those things proactively. So, so that was something that we heard late this afternoon with regard to that question.
So that's good. That's good to know. One of the other questions: how can we blend two persistently low-achieving schools together and expect them to be successful? And the response was that we're not combining schools, but I think we are, right? For the 7th and 8th grade academy, we are combining the Stewart population with the Valley Prep / Frost population. So, and that gets back to my piece, smaller schools, smaller class sizes, and I don't really see a provision for that. So that continues to trouble me and will keep me from voting for it tonight. I would be very happy to have a special meeting where we have some more answers, and I really want to support this, but I just, too much is missing right now. The other, literally in the last day and a half, I've had people call me, and I've had, plans emailed to me that also sound like really good plans, and folks were only given an opportunity to comment. We're given 2 weeks to comment on this plan, and I've heard ideas about having a 7th grade principal and an 8th grade principal and all various configurations, some of which may be terrible and some of which may be great, but it seems like there was only the one plan that got fully vetted. And then the final thing that will keep me from voting for it tonight, this has to do with parents having made school selections based on one set of conditions, and now there's a different set of conditions. Actually, I'd have 2 other things. So, and I know, Barbara, you talked a little bit in the work session that you'll accommodate parents as much as you can, but before I could vote on it, I would need to see more of a specific plan, how parents who thought that this was what they were choosing is not what it is anymore. What are we really going to do to kind of bend over backwards to reach out to those parents and make sure that their child's needs are met?
So if the board decides to approve this proposal, the first thing we would do is send a letter to each family explaining their options. And one of those options we'll make sure that families are aware of is that the student transfer window opens on May the 9th, Monday, May the 9th. So they'll have plenty of time to consider their options. We have a parent assistance specialist who can answer any questions for them if they want to come in. We may need to have a meeting at the schools to talk with families to answer their questions. Their questions about their own children. And then when we start to process those middle school applications, we can look at the students who are assigned to these schools, look at their applications, give them a priority look first, so that we have a space limitation for student transfers. So if we can try to give these students some priority because they are hearing about this a little after the application period, and we want to try to help them as best we can.
Okay, and I appreciate that. The last thing I want to mention in the proposal, it talks about potential added resources, and one of the things that I've heard a lot of concern about is that resources are sometimes promised and not delivered. And so there really is, I think, a lot of concern about that in the community. I know that one of the reasons that Frost's numbers have gone down, what I've been given to understand, is because after the first year where they had the Summer Bridge program, the second year they were not provided funding. They were able to offer a version of it, but it didn't include transportation. So by taking away resources, we've sort of created the situation we're in to some extent.
I'd like to address the word potential. That was to indicate and represent that there needed to be leadership and school input. So the potential isn't the thought that we would allocate the resources and then pull them back. The potential means that we recognize that the schools need to be part of that final decision making. So that was the meaning behind the word potential.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
And if I could just mention something about student voice. The way we envision this is that you get a principal who hires staff, including the staff positions that we talked about, and begins to include students in the staff and parents and brings them in. When I went to the session, one of the parents said what would be really important is the extracurricular activities after school. And it makes much more sense to pull in the parents and the students and say, if you could choose extracurricular activities, what would they be? And build it around what their interests are, as opposed to us giving you more detail about activities that wouldn't be meaningful. So I think there's an opportunity. I opened a new school. So when you open a new school, there's a lot of opportunity for students to have a voice, to set the rules, to create a student council, to create the norms for the school. So suddenly you're asking students to be leaders and creating something new. So I'm going to say that the student voice is more important in building the specifics of what it's going to be. And I'll reiterate what Dr. Hartstern said is, just like any principal right now is creating a schedule that meets the needs of their schools, we are suggesting this amount of resources. If the principal and teacher leaders decide they want to use those positions differently or in a different configuration, there would be an opportunity to do that. And the ratio, what I heard Dr. Hartstern say is the ratio of adults who are really boots on the ground, teachers involved in instruction, to students will be very reasonable at this school. So there will be more personalized attention because of the numbers of positions. So again, if we want to get 10 great extra teachers plus the regular extra teachers, you're not going to do it on the back end of the transfer process or hiring process. We want this school to have the opportunity to be in the front end of getting the best quality candidates. So that seems, so I guess that's what we could bring back to you, is the process that the principal will use to engage the community and students in creating this school. So I think it's a reasonable expectation to have that there be that collaboration and that involvement. But in terms of waiting, the argument against waiting would be we can't start the process that we're describing. So I would just add that.
Okay, would you all like to comment on any other of Dr. Wilmer's points before we move on? Okay, all right, Chris and then Diane.
Thank you, Chair. I will say that I understand some of my colleagues' concern about the quickness of this particular process. I would normally have those same concerns, but those concerns for me are outweighed by what I see as the immediate safety concerns regarding Frost and also Valley Prep. Those concerns were reinforced by the meetings we had, at least the meeting I attended last Wednesday, when a parent had talked about the fact that Frost had been placed on lockdown a couple of times due to environmental concerns next door. So that was news to me, and I had not realized that had actually happened. According to the parent and to the student that was there, that's what they said. So there was a student voice in that regard that was addressed. So if
that's not accurate, go ahead and correct it.
And actually, I'll let Dr. Razor speak to that.
Okay.
Because he researched that.
I was asked to look into this today. I checked with all of our safety and environmental records. We have had in the last 2 years one incident inside the building that was an indoor air quality issue of some mold that was found over the summer, and that's the only environmental issue that there's been. So there haven't been any outside. A few years back there was the train derailment that affected several schools in that area, but none specific to Frost or Watson Lane in the vicinity.
Okay, because that concern was also in the comments within that was provided to this board. So I was kind of, I was reading that, it was in there.
Sure.
There was no documentation that was, going against those comments that parent had actually, and her daughter had actually made at the Shawnee.
And this morning was the first that I'd heard of those comments too. So if I would have seen that, I would.
Because those are new to me as well.
Yes.
The first time I ever heard it was last week.
And Mr. Brady, I appreciate you bringing it out so that Dr. Razor had a chance to address it. So thank you for bringing it forward.
Okay. So in regards to that, that is still, I have those concerns about the environmental issues, but also my understanding is of Valley Prep that there's difficulty with classes being let out at the same time for our students to go to different classes. They have to be on a tiered type of approach. Is that correct?
Correct. Currently, with the enrollment of about 400 students at Valley Prep, and the students at Valley Prep are housed in their classrooms are in the original part of the building, and those hallways and stairwells are more narrow than the original part of the building. And when the board approved the original Frost Valley Prep separation, one of the pieces of feedback that we received from parents was a concern of intermingling the middle school and high school students. So those wings are kept, those student bodies are sort of kept separate, and as a result, when a bell rings or when a class ends, rather than just releasing 400 students in narrow stairwells, narrow hallways, it's a staggered approach, and it has created us some challenges with regard to transitions and some climate issues with regard to that.
Well, in the event of an evacuation of that building, would that be a safety concern?
I would say that it's within to go to an exit for a fire is a little different than going to my left or to my right or downstairs to go to my third period class.
I'm thinking not just fires, but there's all sorts of other issues.
Exactly, but that's as far as egress. I mean, so of course those schools are inspected just like all of our schools are. So I don't think that's an issue. It's just a matter of dismissing 400 students to go in different directions with regard to classroom changes.
That was different than what was told to me by other administrators, where you said that if you spread your arms out, you can touch both sides of the wall.
They are more narrow than what you would see in a traditional middle school or a high school hallway, because it is the original 1912, 1913 configuration 20s of Valley High School. That's the part of the building where the Valley Prep Academy is currently housed.
Okay, so those would be my main concerns that would prompt this to go forward with this particular issue. I do have concerns, as I said, if we were to ever replicate this model, that we need to gather more time and more input for the community for that.
Okay, thank you, Diane.
First of all, I'd like to say that I spent about 50 minutes yesterday talking to Mr. Hadaway, not knowing that he was unable to be here today, because we share students going to both those schools for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I think it was 2 years ago, we did have a situation with the bus that turned over on the way to Frost. Dr. Harkins and I had an opportunity to talk to parents in West Louisville. We brought them to where we were, to where they live, to talk to them about concerns. But in talking to Mr. Hadaway, he's comfortable with this recommendation. He has spent a lot of time in the schools talking to staff. Because he's comfortable, I'm a little more comfortable with it. I still have some concerns, some of which I mentioned earlier. As it pertains to the student voice, I would like to say that the night I attended 2 meetings, the one at Carter and the one at the Academy at Shawnee. There was a brilliant young man at Carter that was an AP student that is very excited about going forth with his education. So we may not have heard from 100, but we heard from one that's very focused on his education and the parent that is supporting him as well. Also, I'm not saying that everybody had plus comments to say, but that's the purpose of having the meeting, is to hear all the comments. So we heard good comments from him, and there were some other concerns from parents, I believe, of families about bullying, and I think you have addressed that, and behavior, I think you've addressed that. I think as we go forward with what's good for students, we learn from what we've done in the past, and we don't create the same situations again. In the past, we put things out there expecting it to happen. In this particular proposal, there's a request for a project director that will see it through. I asked specifically, is that 30, 60, 90 days? I was told the project director would be there for some time to make sure that the work is taken care of. I strongly feel that we have to have additional communication to parents and families wherever they are comfortable with coming, and because we need to do a better job with that. And if we don't, then that's a shame on us, because I think we must do that. So if that means that we need to open up various locations in various districts for those conversations, I think that we should do that. The conversation about this summer bridge program we brought up in the work session, and we talked about the numbers. It's critical that if we're going to have things like summer bridge, that we have it for all students, not for those that can provide transportation, but for all students, because everybody cannot provide transportation. I can't drive there myself on a good day without getting lost. So if we're about students, then we have to provide transportation for all, and not say we have this program, but only if you can provide your transportation. But I think you're going to deal with that also. The number of transfer requests, I would be interested in seeing what that looks like. The piece about teachers, we have struggled all year with our teachers, but the earlier we can start with getting teachers in place and administrators in place. We cannot put administrators and teachers in place a couple of weeks before school starts. It's never been successful, and it never will be. So these are some of the things that I have listened to, I've asked questions about. I feel that when we develop the enrollment, that we want to have things for students to be successful, because we're quick to say when the leader is not successful, but sometimes we're stacking the deck, and I think that we will not do that. I am committed to monitoring and paying attention to what's happening, but it's about what's good for the students. Again, Mr. Hadaway and I maybe others share students that go to these schools, but we have to pay attention. But if we know something's not working, we have to be willing to change, but we have to change in the right way, not change for change's sake. Change and do it right. So those are my thoughts, but my first and last comment is, I spent time talking to Mr. Hadaway yesterday, probably 50 minutes, to see what his comfort level was. He is the board member for these schools, and he is comfortable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Linda, very briefly, and then I have a
Yes.
couple comments.
And I just want to add there, many of my residents also have kids who go to and attend Stewart Middle School and also Frost. So I do also share constituents on this, and I have heard from constituents who have kids in advanced program, and that's the concern that was expressed to me. So I think we all just have different perspectives there.
Well, and can you verify, Dr. Beatty and Dr. Hartstern, advanced program will be a part of Stewart?
Yes.
Yeah, the projected numbers of students eligible for advanced program, we have looked at those numbers, and there are numbers in grade 6 and in the 6th grade academy and 7-8 to be able to support sections of advanced program classes.
And we have advanced program in all of our schools now, or services, so.
Okay, great. I have a couple of questions and comments. I mean, first, I applaud you for taking this on. I think we got to remember that the backdrop here is Stewart is not working, right? I mean, we have to do something about a priority middle school that we have not found the key to yet. And although there may be other issues that we have to get into, including why we concentrate students who are behind the way we do, we have to also have a sense of urgency and not just sit around and wait forever to decide what to do. So I applaud you for taking this on rather than just leaving it alone and waiting. I think the biggest question on my mind is, can we execute what seems to me a pretty sensible plan? And I think it's fair to say that the evidence is not great. This board is not thrilled with the effectiveness of the district in how we opened Minor Daniels Academy. We're not thrilled with how we worked with the School of Innovation and what happened at Maupin. I think the dilemma that we face is the root causes of some of those problems were the incredibly late start and the confusion in the staffing of the buildings so that you didn't get people there. So in a way, the longer we deliberate, the less likely, so we're in a little bit of a Hobson's choice here. But it is I think, important to, to get some idea from you guys of how can we track whether this is working, because it will not do to hire a principal, in the middle of the summer. It will not do to, mess up HR so that we don't get the benefit of closing a school and the opportunity to let people reapply who really want to be in this, in this program, and get access to the master teachers who probably have other choices about where they could go. So what kind of assurance can you give us that execution is going to work and that we're going to see it? I guess maybe I can simplify all of that. Who's in charge? I mean, this is educators don't talk like this, but the business world would say we need one throat to choke. And who's going to be in charge of this project so that if it comes off, we don't have everybody pointing their fingers at each other?
And the role that is critical to the success of this project is the project coordinator. That is the one person who should know every detail, who should wake up every day worrying that the success of this school and these students is at the forefront. So there will be one person who coordinates all the details, and I think that's a wise expenditure and part of the proposal. So, that's a lesson learned.
Will they have the throw weight to? You got a lot of senior people who have different pieces of this puzzle.
They will have my cell phone number, so absolutely they will have the weight to make sure that we don't disappoint this board with the execution.
Okay. The other piece, I think, is an issue that is more for this board going forward, but one of the challenges, and I think Lisa alluded to it, it came up a lot in the work session, but how will we protect the budget of these two new schools? Or actually, Frost is not new. Frost is a new location. Whatever we're going to call Stewart is going to be a new school. But there is a clever, innovative way to deal with the fact that state money for priority schools has largely dried up. If we close Frost, we will create some potential savings to offset some of these extra costs. But this district doesn't like it when one school gets more than another. And, that's a question that only this board can deal with. And how are we going to protect, for whatever it's going to take, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many years, to turn it around, the nice notional funds? Because you guys can't apply them if we don't get them through the budget process. What do we do about that? Because we can't even track individual schools. We don't have time.
My preference is that we move to staffing populations and not staffing buildings. So we take the unique needs of these schools and consider those in the budgeting process. And I think I mentioned that 2 weeks ago at our work session. I truly believe that staffing a population is different from staffing a building. And I think this proposal is our first shot at doing that.
It's a good idea, but we haven't actually adopted that principle yet.
Absolutely.
So, Donna, how do we?
Well, there is a recurring dollar amount that would be invested in the school. And we have put in every budget item what would be the recurring expenses, and the master teachers in the additional positions, we know our recurring expenses. So that is documented, that the expectation that they would be recurring. So there should be nothing that happens to them. So I think that's an important piece. This isn't a one-time expense, this is a recurring expense. And of course there'll be some savings when Valley, in 17-18, when the 8th graders in Valley don't, so there'll be savings there. But we're estimating what amount recurring expense. There's a bigger amount next year, but recurring after that is
about
$700,000. So would be the recurring expense that we're just going to have to take into account in the allocation.
So, I really think that's a question for the board. If we're voting for this, we're saying that over the next 5 years, we're willing to fund the need, not the bricks and mortar.
David, that was my one point, is what I'm saying is we're starting at $1,300. It's a per student additional allocation that we're voting on.
That's right.
So we're going to do it for a year at $1,300. And so it's $554. Is that what it was? $500.
That's the second year, yeah.
Yeah, but that's a recurring.
Right.
every single year we're investing, and the idea is that's why it all has to work together, because we're investing in a whole feeder middle school, because our middle schools feed Doss, like we heard, it feeds Valley, but then it may feed other schools. So we're really investing in a community here by devoting intensive resources at the middle school level. The question that begs the question is, our strategic plan wasn't really geared toward middle school investment. We were investing in, K3. We were investing in early, pre-K, and so that would be the question. But it looks like this is a unique, after talking to Glenn and really talking to our Mr. Hadaway, there is support for this, and so I will embrace it, but that it is an intensive investment, and that's what I hope, Ms. Fowler, we are investing in this community, and by God, we expect good implementation. We expect less bullying. There's some expectations that go along with an increased per student allocation, because we're not, like I said, it's not following the children who left Myers. It's not following the children who went to Western or Shawnee or Westport that were at Myers. So this is a real different decision by a board to invest in a community, but I think there is the support to try this, because we will do this in other areas. The hope is to be able to invest like this in other areas of our county, all over the county, to really redirect our investment.
Okay, great. All right. Is there a motion to support the proposal? Diane moves. Steph, do you second? Okay, seconded. All in favor? Okay, 4 votes in favor. Opposed? 2 votes opposed. Okay, motion carries. Thank you all very much. All right, why don't we stand and stretch for a moment? Let's just...
We're not.
Yeah, you should. All right. All right, let's begin to come back to order. Ready to go? Let's go to the website. All right, our next item is an information item. It is an update on the redesign of the JCPS website. So, Dr. Hargens, to you.
Thank you. One of the key strategic priorities is access to information, and so a website that is very user-friendly, that can give our public and our employees access to information, is critical. So we're going to briefly do an update and sort of set the stage for the launch of the new website. So, Ms. Katzman, are you going to lead this? Okay.
I'm ready to go. We've been working on this since November of 14, and we are finally excited to be able to present an overview to the entire board. And, well, let's just get going and then we'll talk about where we are. JCPS has developed a completely new website. Pages on the old site have been updated and migrated into a new system, and many new pages have been created. In addition, there's an entirely new menu structure and a new look and feel. Our new homepage features a photo gallery. Each image in the gallery is interactive, You can hover and click, and they will take you to videos and articles about these events. This will be updated weekly whenever there's new information to be posted. An example, if you click on the bottom image that was in the middle of the photo gallery, it takes you to an article about the art students earning 93 gold keys at the recent Scholastic Art Awards. The new site is very bright and light, and it features even easy navigation. The green symbols, these buttons that are at the bottom of the home page, are quick access for parents and staff to get to school meals, parent portal, JCPS Online, the social media. And then the blue bar at the bottom is a repeat of the actual menu bar that's at the top of the page. So if you're at the top of the page or the bottom of the page, you can always get into the menu and navigate the site. And then the footer at the very bottom has all the JCPS contact information, and currently the employment information is there also. And that all appears on the footer, will be on every main page throughout the site. There are two sets of menus, the main menu, and then we also have the Who You Are menu. Visitors can enter through either site or either menu, and that is at the top of every page. If you click in as Who You Are, as a parent, this is an example of what comes up. The information is already narrowed and filtered to guide their search, so they're not inundated with the mountains of information that's on our current site. It's already filtered based on who they are. They can further refine the information by selecting a specific type of visitor. On this page, if they select special needs student, and in the left column, and they click on it, the information is refiltered just for the parents of a special needs student. So it's refined and makes it easier for parents to get to what they're looking for. We've created school profile pages. We currently have school profile pages on our existing site, but we felt like this information is much more pointed. It gets parents what they're looking for. It really helps with school choice. It provides an overview. It lists major programs, including magnet and optional programs. It provides school data and information on getting involved. Important links on the page include the school report card, the SPP&G book, the Code of Conduct, and SBDM minutes. You can link to the individual school websites through these pages. The district organization is found in the main menu when you click on About, and this is what comes up. One more click on the lower right-hand box on organizational structure will display the entire organizational chart of the district. You can't see it on this slide, but the viewer is able to scroll down and see every department under each division. Each box in this chart contains the division or department head's name and title, and when you click on a division or department box, a list of department employees and contact information is also displayed. This will also let you view the job description of each position in the district. Existing tools that you're already familiar with, such as Bus Finder, School Finder, and Learning Place Finder, have been updated to match the look of the new site. And the JCPS policy manual has been added as a searchable mobile document. Simply enter the topic or section number in the search box at the left, and it will automatically find the related text on your cell phone, on a computer, whatever device you're looking at. It is responsive for mobile devices. The new site looks great on any device. Here you see the superintendent's page as it would appear on a computer screen and as it would appear on a cell phone. So, meeting the information needs of parents and students has been the paramount goal of the new site. JCPS will continuously work to enhance the site to make sure it provides the type of content, tools, and functionality that meets the needs of the school community.
Okay, thank you. Chris.
First of all, thank you. Job well done. I'm looking forward to actually having this rolled out and for us implementing this. But Kim, before we continue anymore, would you mind introducing your team to everyone? Sure. So I know there's a lot of hard work that's gone into this.
Well, this is Mike Broderick. He's the district webmaster. I'm Kim Katzman. I'm head of the materials production department. This is Daniel Waddell in the IT department, and Thomas Pack, communications. So.
And I just want to say that, again, I really appreciate all the hard work that your team has put into this. As I said, I know it's been a ton of work. This is, I think, a cleaner looking site. Hopefully Mike won't be inundated with the amount of work that he has to do to maintain this, because I know that each of the departments can maintain this on their own, because that's a WYSIWYG type of interface. I'm sorry, what you see, what you get. And also I like the mobile aspect of this. Also, before, would you kind of talk about what this platform is based on, and also how it ties to the city of Louisville?
Sure. We are using a open source software content management system that's called Drupal, and Drupal is the same system that the city uses for their website, which they've won some awards for. We're also using the same vendor for the creation of the site. So being open source is going to allow us to be able to expand and customize and do some things further on down the road as we decide to develop this further with more features and so on.
Yeah, and I also think that this gives us the opportunity to create even more synergy between us and the city, because we're using the same type of platform. So there's a lot of shared resources, I think, that we can use to kind of strengthen our partnership there too.
We've already had some discussions with them, and
I'm sure you have.
Have some ideas on, so it's been great.
So, but I was going to say thank you once again.
Great. Other questions, comments? Yes, Steph?
I'm just excited to see it because of our performance technology work group. Chris had kind of taken a little bit more of the lead on this aspect, but it's exciting. So, and it's all mobile friendly. So that was a big thing. As a parent, it was really difficult with the last, website to navigate. When is it going to be coming online? What's the time?
Well, we're in the testing period right now with employees and schools and so forth, so they can get used to where stuff is in the website before we sort of release it. We still have some development. We're trying to finish up some pieces that haven't been completed, and some data that needs to be cleaned up for some of the stuff that goes into the org chart and some of those other things. My proposal was to have this released the week after spring break. We have some things going on in the district before that we don't want to have a big change in. So over spring break might be a little difficult, so hopefully the week after that is what we're sort of, our goal is to kind of look at it like that.
Okay, great, thank you. We look forward to using it, and we will be banging on it a little bit too before launch, and hopefully have something intelligent to say. All right. Thank you very much. All right, the next, I'm sorry, we need a motion to receive the update on the website redesign. Chris moves, Lisa seconds, all in favor. Passes unanimously, thank you. We now move on to the consent calendar. Once again, I thank my colleagues for sharing their questions and discussion ahead of time a great deal. We have two items that have previously been requested to be pulled down. One is item 9C, approval of job descriptions. The other is 9N, approval, N as in Nancy, approval of professional services contracts. And with those two set aside, is there a motion to approve the rest of the consent calendar? Chris moves, Steph seconds, all in favor, passes unanimously. All right, who would like to begin the discussion of the job descriptions, number 9C?
Well, I believe there was one job description that there was a question about, and it is the coordinator 2 of climate and culture. So, Dr. Averett, do you want to describe what that position is about?
Sure. Previously, the position and the department was named after one initiative. So the name change to School Culture and Climate Department, and the repurposing of the job description really reflects all of the initiatives and divisions that are under that department that are proactive and provide strategies to build culture and climate, and then it also closely aligns to our new Vision 2020, specifically looking at the strategies regarding improving culture and climate and cultivating a growth mindset. The goal of the department is to train and coach and support school staff so that they can create environments that are conducive to learning. There are other districts that have implemented departments similar to this. One of our benchmark districts, the Austin Independent District, has a school culture and climate department where they focus on social emotional learning and creating positive climates. And so renaming that department and repurposing the position aligns to what we need to do to fulfill our vision.
Okay, are there questions on that? Lisa?
Could you just say a little bit more about, I know that the name has changed, but how will the function actually change from what it was before? And it was SRT?
The SRT department, and so we recognize that we have a lot of supports, Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports for our students, and the student response team being primarily a Tier 2 support, and we want to really focus on our Tier 1 supports, and so the department will provide a lot of proactive strategies. Our positive behavior intervention support system is under there, incorporating social emotional learning, trauma-informed practices, bullying prevention, mental health counselors, all fall under that department, so it will allow us to implement a lot of proactive supports for our schools.
So just to translate Tier 1 and Tier 2 and Tier 3 out of education ease, is it that what has been primarily a more reactive or responsive approach is now being a more preventive,
more proactive,
whole school
definitely
kind of
we're
approach?
Right, we're focusing on the proactive and still providing, of course, strategies and support for students who we need to respond to, but then we also need to provide additional proactive supports for them.
When looking at peer districts and other districts who have done this and gone to more of a proactive approach, do we see a decline in the need for Tier 2 and Tier 3? I mean, would we expect to see once this is fully implemented?
Right, because we would have the foundation would be set, and strategies and coaching would be provided to help intervene so that we don't have to go to the next level of more reactive model.
Thank you.
Any other questions about that one? Okay, let's do these by the ones. They may be different. Is there a motion to approve 9C? Diane moves, Steph seconds. All in favor? Carries unanimously. Okay, the next is 9N. Chris?
Thank you, Chairman. My question is regarding this particular contract. This is a contract for Dr. Thomas Alsbury to do basically an evaluation of the school board. And back last year, we had approved another contract. I believe it's for about $4,000. For an analysis of 3 meetings. There was also one meeting was to take place via phone, which that did take place. But at that meeting, there was a discussion as to there would be a second part of that meeting that was also done, and there was an analysis done for one of our meetings, but not 3. My concern is that it seemed like that particular part of that contract wasn't fulfilled, and if we're in the process of doing another $4,000, or at least this particular part, another $4,000 contract for some upcoming analysis, then what happened to the original contract from last year? Because it seems like there's still a bit outstanding.
So do you want to tackle
Sure.
that?
The actual contract or the proposal was to look at 3 board meetings and give feedback. So Dr. Alsbury looked at one, the board received feedback. We Skyped Dr. Alsbury into a work session. He's looked at a second one, and he's actually looking at a third one. So he will have completed that part of the contract. This part of extending it, which takes the dollar amount over $5,000, is actually to bring Dr. Alsbury here to do training. That is the training he did at KSBA for our board, and also give face-to-face feedback and have the discussion, because what we heard the board say is they want the opportunity for discussion with each other and with Dr. Alsbury. So it's the cost of the training and bringing him here for face-to-face discussion.
Just for clarification, so this is an extension of the original contract, not a brand new contract?
No, this would actually be 3 hours of training plus discussion with him for an additional 2 hours. So, and he will give written reports and feedback for the meetings.
Okay.
Mr. Brady, the $4,000 for the original agreement with Dr. Alsbury is incorporated in this contract. That was done at the recommendation of our purchasing department.
Okay.
When we go over $5,000, then it becomes something that needs to be in a contract that gets brought before the board. And since this is an extension of existing work, it's all put into one single contract.
That clears things up. I thought it was an additional 4,000. Okay, I get it now. So it didn't read that way, but I get it now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that clarification. I do think the hope here, the feedback that I think I've heard from this board is that we appreciate this work, and we thought that having him come to our offsite would be productive to work face-to-face together. So, all right, is there a motion to approve this? Diane moves, Steph seconds again. All in favor? Great, thank you. That is done, and we are now, we've now completed the consent agenda. The next item is there is a tie bid this evening, so I would like to invite Vice Chair Diane Porter to draw lots for the tie bid.
The bid tonight is for locks and other miscellaneous hardware. And after we decide who gets the bid, I have a little note on here that says, don't forget to vote.
I wonder who she's talking to.
Very much. Thank you, thank you. Great prompt. And this goes to accredited lock supply.
Accredited block supply. Is there a motion to approve the resolution of the tie bid? Mr. Brady moves. Okay, Dr. Wilner seconds. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now move to item 10, discussion of the planning calendar, which you have previously received. And I guess I would say I would draw your attention both to the items that have been scheduled for the post-spring break beginning April 26th, but also down to the on-deck issues where a number of items that different people have mentioned are, we've attempted to encapsulate them all, all there. Are there any comments, concerns? I guess, Donna, the only thing, where is the off-site on here? Is it scheduled yet?
Actually, it is scheduled now, 15th and 16th of April.
Okay, and are we calling it a retreat, or what are we calling it?
Well, it's more like a meeting than, it's certainly a meeting, so it's the 15th and 16th.
The 15th and 16th, all right, great. So, and that has cleared everybody's calendar, so
Yes.
That's the other piece that will be on here. Okay, any comments, questions? Steph?
I just wanted to talk just a little bit about when we are going, we're, really eager to see that some of the deeper learning report back, I guess, we see that there's a lot of work being done by looking at the district, the CDIP, the plans that they had to do it. When will that report out? It's on deck. Is it like July, August? Is that going to encompass assessment environment in the district and things like that, Donna?
Yes, the actual assessment tool that I showed during the superintendent's report will give you a sense of where we are with all of those. So I will be showing that every 2 weeks and pointing out specifics and going deeper with specifics as we continue to get more done.
And then the only other issue I think I had just to officially request, last year we had done just a yearly report on our legal, pending and, based on date of incident that, when it occurs. And we're going to do that sometime. I guess it'll make its way onto the calendar.
Right, and they have that scheduled. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for asking for it.
Okay, great. Lisa?
questions. I have appreciated your infusing the discussion of the new strategic plan everywhere, and I would love to hear kind of how we're, evangelizing, if you will, the plan, how it's getting out into schools, and how schools are using it as they're looking at their CSIPs and so forth. So I don't know, where a board update or in one of your reports, I would love to just know how it's getting disseminated. And then the other piece is I would love a work session or some discussion around developing a system-wide, cohesive kind of approach to all things behavior-related, behavior, discipline, referrals, suspensions, all of that, and how we're going to make sure that the pieces aren't parceled out, but that there's a really cohesive approach to it.
Yeah, I think that is a good idea, and I think that needs to, we need to figure out how to have a coherent review. Having it parceled into, the code of conduct policy development process only is not really adequate for getting our arms around all the different things that are going on. So, okay, what else do people have on their minds? Go ahead.
If our time frame for like the assessment landscape is July and August, do you think that gives us time, I don't know, just for schools to be planning for the upcoming year if there are changes to be made? I don't know, really how that would have, if there's something that's going to affect schools, is that an okay time frame for July and August?
Well, it would need to be prior to probably August, because it would need to be ready for August. So that would be short-term, shorter time frame. Is that right, Dr. Dawson?
Yes, and for the deeper learning piece, we're looking for pilot schools to participate. So we want those early adopters. We want the schools that are really interested in pursuing some of that work to pilot some of that work in the 16-17 school year before we roll it out district-wide.
Okay, and I guess I just want to remind everybody that I guess beginning tomorrow morning at about 8 o'clock, Dr. Razor's crew is going to be trying to get on our calendars to meet and review the facilities planning document that we've all read. So we've got some additional homework that is not really entirely captured here, but we have all agreed to do. So thank you for that. All right, is there a motion to approve the planning calendar? All right, Chris moves. Is there a second? Steph seconds. All in favor? Aye, that passes unanimously. Great, thank you very much. Now we move on to board reports. Who would like to report something? Chris.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I just want some things that I have been attending for the last couple of weeks. I did attend a code of conduct meeting, I believe Friday before last, at the Louisville Zoo. So there was lots of interesting discussion on that, including a couple of students there, so the student voice was heard. So that was a really good thing to see there. The other thing I was able to attend was the educational open house over at the Speed Art Museum. So the Speed is back, yay! And there's some pretty interesting exhibits there. That crew has done a phenomenal job with bringing a great cultural treasure back to our community. And my congratulations out to them for such a great, successful rollout. I'm not sure if it was 30 hours at the Speed or if it was 29 of daylight savings time. So it was a 29, so I kind of wondered about that. Also, I had the opportunity to attend Stage 1's performance of Harold and the Purple Crayon, which is a interesting, great play that they've been able to do off a very short story. There is a technical aspect of that where students in the audience will be given a tablet to be able to draw along with Harold as the play progresses. There were some technical glitches, but there's a team from Humana there that will hopefully fix all that. They were donating their time for that. But it was a great event, and I look forward to our young students being able to attend that. In addition to that, I was also was able to attend a film screening for Most Likely to Succeed with Ted Dintersmith, who is the producer of that particular film at Dawes High Schools. There were some interesting strategies and points of views that were expressed in that film. And I think some of those things maybe could be incorporated within our schools, especially through the District of Innovation Plan. So it's something that'll be interesting to see if we can take a look at some of that. And finally, I will say that I filled in for Chuck Hadaway just a little bit because this is in regards to a sporting event. And as anyone knows Chuck, he is very much a sports person, and I was a poor substitute. But he had other issues he had to deal with, and unfortunately, my thoughts are with him and his family during this time. But I did attend the Doss Dragons appearance for the state championship basketball game this past Sunday at Rupp Arena. They did play Paul Lawrence Dunbar. Unfortunately, Paul Lawrence Dunbar was victorious. They definitely had the home court advantage. But the Doss Dragons did a fantastic job, and I think that goes to say a lot about JCPS athletics and the fact that we had the girls' state championship team at Butler and the state runner-up with the boys at Doss. So I want to say congratulations to that program as well as the Butler's program and to JCPS athletics in general. So very great job.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to go next? Linda.
Just want to mention that Stephanie and I attended celebration at the Home and Garden show out at the fairgrounds last Friday. Iroquois High School had a he shed, she shed projects. The girls built a shed and the boys built a shed from the carpentry classes and did amazing jobs. Both of them, I think, were on sale for $12.99. And
they are sold.
And they are sold. But we very much appreciated the partnerships that supported the effort and bought the materials and supplies. And Stephanie is close to the business industry of America.
Yes, the Building Industry Association of Greater Louisville.
Yes, but congratulations to Iroquois High School students and their instructor. And I'll get his name wrong if I say it, so I'm sorry, I apologize. But I know Terry Miller with our career tech program was out there. It was just wonderful seeing the kids explain their work. And my grandson judged them. He said that the girls' shed was better on the outside and the boys' shed was better on the inside. So.
All right. Anybody else? Diane.
Just quickly, I'd like to again recognize the Vote Scholarship Program that was held this week, and a special thank you to Mr. Heiser for his family endowing those scholarships for such a long period of time. This year there were 14 high schools that were represented at the luncheon, and I had the pleasure and honor of sitting at the Shawnee table, and I was happy to sit with Peyton Edelman, who is going to the Naval Academy, and I want to give him a special shout out because everyone doesn't get to go to the Naval Academy. A fine young man that gave a wonderful speech, and also from Manual High School, Sarah Swartz was there to receive the Vote Scholarship. There were 14 schools, like I said, and of the 14 students that talked about what they were going to do later in life, there was one that said education. So I'm the one in the audience that hollered out, sign them up, in case anybody wants to talk about that. I did have the opportunity to go to the two meetings at Carter and the Academy at Shawnee. Good opportunity to hear from constituents about moving forward. And on Friday night at the Academy at Shawnee, there was a community conversation that was totally student-led, had a wonderful participation, and they did a great job. So I want to give a shout out to the students at the Academy at Shawnee. Friday night, not Monday night, Tuesday night, Friday night, the students were at the Academy at Shawnee. Thank you.
Actually, Diane, can I impose on you and ask, I believe you also went to the Minor Daniels Academy, and you told me something that I found very inspiring about a student presentation, and I couldn't be there, so if you wouldn't mind.
They had a ribbon cutting at Minor Daniels, and it was an opportunity to hear from Mrs. Jessie Daniels, who is Minor Daniels' wife, and she talked about the importance of what Mr. Daniels had done while working for Jefferson County Public Schools. But the thing that was particularly moving to me as we have continued to talk about what has not worked. We clearly heard from a student and his mother about what has worked at the Minor Daniels Academy. And the principal said, I'm not going to speak for my school, I'm asking my student to do that. And he did after his mother spoke, and she said, I'm a hands-on mom, I'm here, they know who I am, they know me by sight, they know my name, they know my voice on the phone. But what stuck with me was this young man that said that when I came to Minor Daniels, I came here as a boy that had made mistakes. And that's why I was assigned to Minor Daniels. But I leave here as a man who has learned how to make important, informed decisions. And for that, I think that we need to say Minor Daniels is in fact working. It may not be working 100% every day, but if we are saving one child and we have made a man from a boy, it was very touching and very heartfelt.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Lisa?
I don't ever want my report to have to follow after Ms. Porter. Thank you for that really inspiring report. I wanted to just mention two things. On March 9th, I spent my entire birthday from before sunrise until well after sunset with Dr. Hargens and a great group of JCPS folks. We did a field trip to Hamilton City School District in Ohio, and it was a really interesting opportunity to observe a program implemented first school, whole school, and now whole district. It was a really interesting to see. It was a very coordinated and cohesive effort, faithful implementation of the program, very, for the board members, that they had a very clear and specific ways of being able to monitor the results. So it was very useful, I think, from a board member perspective to have observed that. One of the things that I asked Matt Tudor, who was our host in Hamilton, he's the director of student services there, so he's like Dr. Averett's counterpart in that district. And I had asked him while we were there, how can a board member best support the good work you're doing? And he said, I'll think about it and get back to you. And he did think about it, and he did get back to me. So I will forward to you guys what he said. It was, I think, very helpful. And also just a really quick update on the Wellness and Wellbeing Work Group, just to let folks know that there's been an initial conversation. I'm thrilled that Dr. Alicia Averett was the staff person that was assigned to be the lead on that group, which makes all the sense in the world. We had just an initial conversation to really look at the parameter and examine the charge of the group. We've got another preliminary conversation set up, this time to really think about how the group will be structured and staffed and all of that. So that is moving forward. Once that next conversation happens, I think we'll really be able to get going full speed ahead. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Steph, nothing? Okay, I've just got two quick subjects. First, week before last, I had a great visit at Seneca, and I spent time particularly on their urban agriculture work, which was a new thing for me to see. There was an enormous amount of student energy devoted to urban agriculture. This is an emerging theme at a number of our schools. I think we've seen that kind of programming be really important to Fern Creek's turnaround, not only in the fields, but in the writing classrooms and some of that. So that was interesting. It also highlighted some of the facilities issues that Dr. Razor was talking about. The other thing that was particularly meaningful to me over the last couple weeks, yesterday I attended something called Learn Fest, which was at Louisville Collegiate School. A number of JCPS teachers and administrators were there, but it was really it was a little bit like, it was part of the Idea Festival, but focused on learning. And the reason I bring it up here was a couple of strong national speakers spoke about the importance of moving beyond narrow testing toward what we've talked about in our strategic plan is assessing teaching to the whole child. And there was a particularly interesting fellow named Yong Zhao, who is a pretty I would say, very, very strong speaker. Uh-oh, I spoke too much. Well then, just so we know. I think that concludes my remarks. Thank you very much. But anyway, it was good, and it's interesting. There is a fair amount of cooperation starting to emerge within under this Idea Festival tent of public schools, private schools, parochial schools, a lot of different folks getting together to try to figure out how to teach to the 21st century child and not bore them to death with routine learning that is just content-based and replicates what Google can already tell them. That would be my summary. So, very interesting. All right. So, I got to shut up. I think we do not need to vote to receive our own reports, and I think we have now we've now come to the point where we are moving to persons who have requested to address the board on non-agenda items. There are a number of people who have signed up tonight, and we have, with Angie's help and Frank Mellon's help, we've tried to group the speakers into subject areas, so you may not get called in exactly the order that you signed up, but hopefully this will make it a little bit easier to follow. I will just review that in accordance with Board Policy 1.421, the board expects that persons who have signed up to address the board will limit their remarks to the subject that they have listed at the time they signed up. That's what makes it possible for us to try to bring a little bit of order to this. If you have not listed a subject, there are enough speakers tonight that you will not be called on to speak. And as usual, you will have 3 minutes to talk. At the end of 2.5, you get 1 bell, as we just heard, and then you get 2 at the end of 3. So we're going to start with, and I apologize if I mispronounce, but it's Jane Brown or Johnny Brown. Okay, please come on up. And I believe you're talking about sex education with us. The first 3 speakers will be on that topic. Thank you.
Here?
Yes, whichever you prefer. Sure. Yeah, we'll pass it along. Just. Okay, you have 3 minutes.
Alrighty. Okay, hello, my name is Janae Brown. I'm a senior at Manual High School. And in the Vision 2020 brochure, which I really enjoyed, published by JCPS, JCPS established their ultimate goal for the year 2020 is to graduate students that are prepared, empowered, and inspired to reach their full potential and contribute as thoughtful, responsible citizens of our diverse, shared world. This is a goal that I too share. As a senior who is graduating in less than 3 months, I often wonder if I'm as prepared as I ought to be. And in most regards, I definitely am. JCPS has given me countless opportunities and excellent teachers that have helped me feel confident in areas from AP statistics to Holocaust and genocide studies. But JCPS's goal isn't just to mold smart students. JCPS also wants to mold prepared students, empowered students, students who can actually function and navigate in the real world. And the reality is that teenagers are having sex. 78% of female rape victims are raped before the age of 25, and students with goals as big as mine and JCPS's vision for 2020 are pulled out of school to take care of a child years before they should have to. The real world demands more of JCPS students than the incomplete heteronormative sex education we are often given. A senior in JCPS wrote, quote, "The extent of my knowledge was limited to a one-day crash course by a Planned Parenthood employee while my teacher sat embarrassed in the back of the room. My whole life, sex has been created into a stigmatized practice that I should never engage in. Adults drilled into my head the dangers, never telling me instead how to avoid them. In my case, my class's Planned Parenthood employee had to cancel. In her absence, we were left to cover abstinence, mention a condom, and detail STIs. Then we simply never came back to sex education. Our class of 25 students was effectively left behind and left in the dark. It's no surprise that there are real dangers that come from being left in the dark, like greater risk of teenage pregnancy and STIs, which we all know. But comprehensive, all-encompassing sex education should be a priority for JCPS, not just because we fear the consequences of not having it, but because we are excited about all of the things that happen when students do have it. Like, for instance, 50% decrease in teen pregnancy among students who receive comprehensive sex education. The empowerment that comes from feeling confident in your sexuality, knowing what is normal for growing bodies, learning how to have safe and consensual sex, and being taught options is something that I can personally attest to, and that is an important part of graduating seniors that are prepared, inspired, and empowered. I believe that this is something, if we keep pushing it back, it's just going to get worse and worse, and we're going to keep leaving students behind. And I think with a district with as big of goals that we have, we shouldn't expect anything less from ourselves. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us tonight. The next speaker on the same topic is Ronald Triplett. Ronald Triplett. Mr. Triplett. Okay. The next speaker on the same topic is Taylor Ewing. Taylor Ewing. Great. Welcome. You have 3 minutes, 1 bell after 2.5, 2 after 3.
All right. And I have some letters for you as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Taylor Ewing, and I teach sexuality education at both public and private schools, as well as churches, community centers, and social services agencies here in Louisville and in southern Indiana. The information provided in these sessions is medically accurate, up-to-date, and research-based. Further, it is information that matters greatly to the lives of young people and their families. The tremendous need for comprehensive sexuality education in our public schools is something I hear time and again from students, parents, teachers, and community members. Students are enormously curious about themselves, each other, and the world around them. They're constantly bombarded by sexual images in media, in addition to myths and misinformation from their peers and others. They're going to have questions, and they're going to ask questions. And they should have the benefit of the best we can give them, which is comprehensive, fact-based, age-appropriate curriculum that answers their questions, whether they be about mathematics or literature or sex and relationships. We're proposing a set of guidelines for sexuality education classes for public school students in 6th through 12th grades, which will do just that. All 5 of Jefferson County's peer school districts already have versions of these guidelines in place. We think Kentucky students are as worthy of this information as students in Texas, Maryland, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. The guidelines are about providing our young people with knowledge to make healthier, more informed choices about their relationships and sexual health, both now and in the future. Further, students will be provided the opportunity to build critical life skills. Young people need more than just knowledge about sexual health. They need the opportunity to think through their personal values and the type of relationships and experiences they want for themselves. They need to practice communicating with potential partners about abstinence and safer sex, and making tough decisions in the moment. They need confidence to feel like they deserve that self-determination to be happy and healthy, whatever that means for them. I truly believe that if everyone present in this room heard the myths and misinformation JCPS teachers and sexuality educators like myself hear regularly in their classroom, there would be no question about supporting comprehensive programs. Just within the past couple months, I've heard comments like, if you're dating someone, it's like they own your body, and you can't expect someone to actually ask you for consent, and you don't have to worry about STDs if you've had all your shots. The information covered by the suggested guidelines, and importantly, the information to practice real-life skills, can have life-changing implications for our young people. This is why both research and anecdotal experience tell us that parents overwhelmingly support comprehensive sexuality education. In fact, a recent survey puts that number at more than 80% of parents. Like every other aspect of education, the sex education guidelines we suggest don't exist in a vacuum. They exist in partnership among student, family, faith community, teacher, and classroom. They will work best when all stakeholders are involved and engaged. The guidelines encourage that involvement and engagement, and they deserve your support and your inclusion in the curriculum. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Ms. Ewing. We're now going to change subjects and invite Brent McKim up to speak about assessment.
Board Chair Jones, Superintendent Hargens, members of the Jefferson County Board of Education. I am Brent McKim, President of the Jefferson County Teachers Association, and I do want to speak to you about assessment this evening. Like many of you, we have received calls from and emails and so forth from our teacher members who are expressing the hope and desire to have some relief from the testing regimen that is district mandated. So we've taken some time at the association to try to look into actually how these decisions are made and where they're made, because there are questions about school board versus SBDM and so forth. And I wanted to share with you what we have been able to determine as we've looked at this. We found that there's actually sort of a division of authority, not unlike the division of power in government between legislative, judicial, and executive. What we found is that what students are to learn is a state decision determined by the standards that are set by the Kentucky Board of Ed. How students are to learn that is actually a school decision to be determined in terms of curriculum by the school SBDM council and by pacing and other decisions at the classroom level by teachers. Whether or not that was learned is a school board district level decision. And in the statute, assessment and grading are school board authorities. So I think this is important to enumerate, because it means the school board does have within its scope of authority the ability to set parameters on assessment. The school board could, for example, say district diagnostic and proficiency assessments shall be optional for teachers, and that would be binding on the administration, it'd be binding on SBDM councils and so forth, and that's within the scope and purview of the school board to do. I do think there is one implicit caveat in this, though, because since curriculum is an SBDM decision, that implies or really requires that the district level decisions about assessment not be invasive so that they interfere with curricular decisions or pacing decisions in the classroom level. So that, we believe, is where the district policy has probably exceeded the scope of its authority, because we are hearing from school after school that the district mandated assessment has become invasive and interfered with the curricular decisions of SBDM councils and the pacing and other mastery of learning decisions in classrooms by teachers. So I just wanted to set that context. You'll hear from another individual on that, and I hope that helps to frame it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next individual is Ryan Davis, who is talking about proficiency assessment, probably in the same vein, right? Yes. Following up. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. You'll have 3 minutes, one bell after 2.5. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ryan Davis. I'm a teacher at Central High School, and I first want to say that I appreciate the board calendaring time to deal with the assessment landscape in JCPS in the near future. To that end, I'm here today to present a petition asking the board to exercise its authority in assessment and discontinue the district practice in proficiency testing. The petition has been signed by myself, as well as every teacher in my building who is required to give these tests. I'm personally passionate about working towards the district goals of deeper learning, personalized learning, and an increased professional capacity for teachers, but I've seen proficiency testing in particular hinder our ability to progress towards these goals. So while the aphorism, "what gets measured gets done," is often used to support such standardized testing, if we accept it as true, we must examine what proficiency testing, as a required measurement, is actually getting done. At a most basic level, this means first determining what is being measured. Proficiency tests consist primarily of multiple choice questions that engender low-level, rote definition of knowledge and learning. What gets measured gets done. What proficiency tests do is get our curriculum and our expectations narrowed and our content shallowed. That moves us further away from a goal of deeper learning. This is not a problem that can be fixed with better proficiency tests, because we also must consider the effect of the act of measurement itself. It's tempting to think of measurement as a non-invasive procedure, but proficiency assessments are more akin to placing an object in a glass of water and seeing how much of that water gets displaced. What gets measured gets done. Proficiency tests encourage a shifting of our entire curriculum, often pushing out the best parts. They encourage a predetermined pace and sequence where instructional decisions become predicated not on the needs of the student, but on the needs of the test. This moves us further from our goal of personalized instruction. Finally, we must also consider how the results of these measurements are interpreted. As detailed in our position, the design of these tests inevitably lead to convoluted and invalid results. Nonetheless, we are asked to make changes or address perceived deficits based on the results of these tests. What gets measured gets done. These measures result in a culture that is more reliant on a narrow and fallible test than a teacher's vast professional knowledge of content, pedagogy, and their individual student population. These tests undermine our attempts to build a culture that's based on our teachers' professional capacity. Yet as teachers, we push back every day against the forces of a system where proficiency testing is the measure that drives what's getting done. We bring this petition to you today to ask for relief in this effort, to ask you to put an end to the proficiency testing as it currently is, and bring our system more in concert with the goals of the 2020 vision so that we can work together towards actually ensuring deeper learning, personalized learning, and actually building a culture that trusts and utilizes the professional capacity of the teachers we employ. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. We're now going to switch to another subject. We have two speakers on the subject of whole school restorative practices. The first one is Harlina Churn Diallo. Apologies if I mispronounced your name.
Perfect.
Okay, great, thank you. Ms. Diallo, you have 3 minutes. One bell will ring after 2.5 and 2 after 3. So
thank you.
Thank you
My
for
name
being
is
with us.
Harlina Churn Diallo, and I'm a member of Greater Good Hope Baptist Church in West Louisville. I'm also a member of CLOUT, and I'm a JCPS teacher. Last year, JCPS students were suspended 14,857 times. JCPS kindergartners were suspended 104 times. JCPS students were physically restrained or secluded 4,403 times. Unacceptable. So far this school year, our schools have reported 80% increase in elementary suspension and a 20% increase in middle and high school suspension. These numbers will only get worse, especially if the revision currently discussed in the Code of Conduct Committee, which may actually increase suspensions, are approved by this board. Let me tell you what these numbers mean for teachers. It means spending your day writing referrals and trying to manage classroom behavior without consistent training. It means watching as coworkers, especially the newer teachers, contemplate leaving teaching. It means worrying about your safety when you go to school every day. This isn't why I became a teacher. I became a teacher to teach and support my students. And I'm here tonight asking for support to do that. We need more than a flavor of the month system that replaces one acronym from another, CHAMPS, SRT, PBIS. We need more consistent training. For example, the school staff at Hamilton, Ohio, defined restorative practice as 80% proactive, 20% reactive. Now, a PowerPoint on PBIS currently given to teachers in JCPS, I quote, restorative practice fits into 25% of PBIS that is in response to the negative behavior. Big difference. We as teachers and our students need real restorative practices, not PR. We need factual information, real support for us as teachers, real resources to help students take ownership in their behavior. We need safe schools. That's why we are so glad to hear that JCPS is moving forward with whole school restorative practices after your successful trip to Hamilton this month. We're looking forward to that training being conducted by certified experts who have experience in implementation of whole school restorative practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Diallo. Our next speaker is the Reverend Wilbur Browning on the same topic. Reverend Browning, you have 3 minutes. One bell will ring after 2.5. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you. My name is Wilbur Browning. I'm pastor of Centennial Baptist Church in the city. I'm also a member of CLOUT. I'm here to represent clergy members there. You've already heard about the thousands of suspensions. You've already heard about the 80% and of increase in elementary suspensions and 20% in middle school and high school. As part of the clergy representation, we understand that for more than 6 years, we have heard disturbing stories about children in JCPS not being treated fairly, including some who have been physically abused. We've heard from parents who have called us with tears because their children have been suspended and pushed off track 2 weeks before graduation. We've heard from children who we've seen change after being restrained at school or sent to alternative school. We're worried with parents and families whose children have been bullied again and again because suspensions do nothing to change the bully's behavior. Our children need to be safe at school. So that's why we too are glad that JCPS is moving forward with the whole school restorative practices after that successful trip to Hamilton, Ohio. We really do need restorative practice and not just public relations. That's what we need. So here's what the students are saying about restorative practice means to them. One student, Savannah, age 15, says, instead of learning from our behavior, students just force us out, schools just force us out without real conversations and interventions. Suspensions don't work. Summonses don't work. Arrests don't work. Keep us in the classroom. Keep us accountable and build relationships. That works. 15-year-old, 17-year-old. Last year, I started and completed my training as a peer mentor, and I am proud to say that I am a part of the change that has begun to happen in my school. Our kids need the opportunity to be a part of change happening in their schools. They need to be aware, and they need to be able to feel safe while walking in the doors. They need to be confident that when they come to school, that they're going to be safe in the hallways. We need real restorative practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Browning. We're going to now move to a new topic. I'll call this generally fair wages. 4 speakers are on the general topic of wages with a couple of other things mixed in. The first is Rachel Chapman. Rachel Chapman. Thank you for being with us tonight. 3 minutes, 1 bell after 2.5. You may begin.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Actually, would you like to just wait a second and let people have time to clear out? Actually, go ahead. They're being very quiet. So, yeah, that's fine. Thank you all for leaving quietly.
Today, representing the 3,500 classified employees, and I'm going to get emotional, I can't help it, that are struggling to feed ourselves. I love what I do. I'm here with these people because we love what we do. We love our jobs. And the answer that I get every day that I go to school, that I wake up knowing that I can't pay my bills without the other 2 jobs that I have, get a master's degree in teaching. You need to go back to school and teach, Rachel. That's what you should do. It's not what I want to do. I enjoy my job. I'm an instructor 3. I love that job. I love what I do for my children in the community. I don't want to be a teacher. I don't. But I also don't want to work 3 jobs to support myself. I'm a product of JCPS, a product of amazing educators. And I came back to give back. But every day, my mother can tell you, I'm searching for jobs every day because I can't support myself. And then I get up in the morning and I go to school and I look at my babies and I don't want to leave them. We need you guys to get behind us and support us. There's 3,500 of us. JCPS is nothing without your classified staff. Your teachers are nothing without the classified people that are in the building supporting learning. I go to work every single day, and I get up every single day worried about how I'm going to feed myself, but then I look at my children, and just a little snippet of Miss Chapman possibly leaving tears them apart, and it tears me apart. But I can't do it anymore. We're tired. We are tired. We are mistreated. We are not paid fairly. We are going to work and doing more than what we're asked to do. And not just because we're asked to do it, but because we're passionate about our children. We're passionate about what we do, and we don't want to stop. But there's not a single person in this room that has a blue shirt on that isn't working more than one job. I work 3 jobs. I'm a college-educated woman. I did not go to school. I did not graduate top of my class from JCPS to go to college and be $70,000 in debt to make less than 20. I ask you, could you feed yourself or your family with $400 every 2 weeks? I get a check for $400 every 2 weeks. I pour my heart and my soul into my building. If you call No Middle School right now and ask them about me, I couldn't even begin to tell you list of things that they would say. There's thank you cards in my mailbox every single day just for the dedication that I have for my job. And I'm motivated by my children. I'm motivated by the decisions that you're making to move this district forward. But then when I get that paycheck and I can't pay my bills or my student loan payment, I'm left with the decision to turn my back on JCPS, and that's not what I want to do. I ask you, I beg of you, to give us fair contract negotiations and think about those of us, the people that are sitting in this room right now, that care about your children, the children of this district, more than some of the teachers that are making great money do. We need your support. We need you to get behind us and help us make an honest living.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chapman.
Thank you.
The next speaker on the same topic is Bettina Young. Bettina Young, there we go. Thank you, Ms. Young, for being with us tonight. You'll have 3 minutes also, with 1 bell at the end of 2.5.
Sorry, I'm sure. Thank you for having me tonight. I've been with the board for 19 years, coming straight out of high school. I was a graduate of PRP High School. I have 2 children that attend JCPS schools. We are very proud to be a part of JCPS, but we ask for respect. We go into our jobs and we're asked to do things that are not in our job description, and I don't mind doing some of it. I don't mind doing a lot of it because the kids are my family. Yes, I have 2 of my own that are sitting here tonight with me. We have not had dinner tonight because we cared about being here to stand up for our own people that deserve respect and fairness. We want to be able to afford to feed our families. My daughter wanted a classroom for high school. I couldn't afford to get it. I had to go somewhere else to another jewelry store to get her a ring so she can walk with her class to get her ring. But she won't have a traditional class ring. She'll have a diamond ring that's cheap because that's what I could afford. She'll be graduating next year. Will I be able to afford what she needs? No. My son has severe medical issues. I worry every day whether or not I can provide the medicine or the care that he needs. And then I was asked earlier in the year by somebody for a student in my classroom, because that parent is not providing what that child needs, I was told I should go buy what that child needed. And I had to tell that person, I can't afford to buy for another kid because I have to worry about providing for my own. I asked, you all want to be respected, right? Every one of y'all, even out here. That's all we want. We want to be respected. Respect goes a long way. If we're given respect and what you all would do, we ask, go into the classrooms. See what really goes on in these classrooms, because these children are our children. I ran into one that was one of my first students, and the first thing she said was, I love you. I had a kid today come up and hug me. He has no communication skills at all. Come up and hug me because I show him compassion. We want compassion. We want to be able to take care of our families as well as our students, because it breaks our heart going home every day knowing that there is a kid that went home from school today that couldn't eat. I ask that when you all are going into negotiations of our contract, that you all start really thinking about what we deal with on a daily basis. Is our pay really worth what we're getting? Are we doing the job, or are we doing more than the job than what we're getting? I ask for you all to stop and think about that as you all go into negotiating our contract this year. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Young. The next speaker is Rhonda and I apologize, Yanj? Yan, I'm sorry. Oops, it's misspelled on the sheet here, which you did not write, obviously. We transposed your letters. All right, Ms. Young, you also have 3 minutes. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Yes, Bettina is my daughter, the lady that just left.
There we go.
I've been in the system for 22 years. Prior to that, I was a parent. I was a parent of a child that had learning disabilities. I believed enough in the system to keep her in JCPS. She grew up, she got her, I'm not a speaker, I'll tell you that right off the bat. She got her education to become an airplane mechanic for a child that I was told in the beginning was retarded, okay? I've raised 3 children. I talked my daughter into going into education. I've got 4 grandchildren in education. My youngest daughter's got 2 kids getting ready to go to school. She asked me, where should they go? I said, JCPS. One of the concerns I have, though, is this past year, my husband, less than a third of his heart was pumping, and he was unable to work. I was unable to afford to pay our bills on my salary. I had never worried about that. I always used to tease and goof off and say, I'm working just for the insurance. Well, that's exactly what I was working for, because it was a choice between food, it was a choice between paying the electric bill. You know, thank God my house payment was paid. I mean, I don't have a house payment. It's already taken care of. We would not have survived had it not been for friends and family helping with bringing food. We would not have survived. And that's sad to say for somebody that has worked for the board for 22 years, who loves it as much as I do. I love these kids. The kids that are in school, in my classroom, they're my babies. I've had them come back and thank me for being a part of their lives. And yet at the same time, if one of them came up and asked me right now, would you be an assistant? I would say, run the other way. There's not enough money. Get a better education. Because I personally look at this job and say, man, I wished I'd stayed at one of my other positions. I could have made a lot more advanced up. I love my job. But right now, I'd have to say, financially, I can't afford this job. And I'm at the age of retirement. What are the people that are going behind me going to do? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Young. The next speaker on this topic is Patrick McKinney. Patrick McKinney. Great. Welcome. You'll have 3 minutes also. 1 bell will ring after 2.5 and 2 bells at the end of 3.
Good evening to the board and superintendent and people of the community. I'm Patrick McKinney. I'm the in-school adjustment program teacher at Carruthers Middle School, instructor 3. For the last few years, I've pursued education as my career. I left a corporate job at Yum Brands with my fellow workers saying, are you sure? For what reason? For financial purposes or for the people I'll be working with, the children? I made that decision. It was one of the best decisions I've made in my life. But coming into this, I've come to see the need for a good wage. So when the contract comes up, let's make sure that we get it done by June. So in that way, we can go ahead and negotiate in a timely manner. And that shows the community that this board is interested in us classified, that we are needed as part of the school and part of the program. And everybody helps. Everybody in those schools are teachers, from classified to certified. I cannot tell you when I go in the community of J-Town how many former students I see at restaurants, working, being successful, making those strides forward. And that's the same thing JCP did for me. 12 years of education from JCP, a graduate of Eastern High School, and a graduate of Indiana University Southeast. Coming, offering all those skills that the bases start right here with this community of schools, and how far it's got me. So in order for we can still do the great job that we do, we need those financial resources. for home and also for school. I have cookie dough to buy. I have candles to buy from students. I hate to tell them no. Even the Girl Scouts, how wonderful they are. And those are the things you want to do, and those are the things the students see, and they know that you love them. And in spite of being the in-school adjustment program, yes, I do get love. It might not always come in, hi, how you doing? It might be other ways. Next to my desk is a share chair. Tell me what happened, how you got put in there. Let me share with you. Sometimes I learn a little more than I need to know, like whip, nay, nay, and all the other things the young middle schools like to do. But again, it's that ability to be able to do those things and to have those financial resources to be able to work with these children and also to be the face of diversity. We need to see our African American men, women, Asian, Latino, all colors representing a community that is very diverse, as we often hear on our evening news. And to see that and to be able to financially support myself and to be able to do those things, that I may be able to serve these children. Yes, we are serving them. So we can build our community here in Kentucky, in Louisville, that reflect throughout the United States. And as business comes in, they'll know that we care and we're putting forth the effort to serve our students and our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McKinney. We're going to now move on to the next topic, Gay Adelman. Gay Adelman is speaking about positive feedback. Welcome. 3 minutes, one bell after 2.5.
Thank you. Dear JCPS, I'm often asked why the feedback that Dear JCPS provides is negative. And so tonight I want to start with some positive feedback. But quickly, one of the reasons that our feedback is negative, it's not intended to be negative, it's intended to be critical friends. But we only get 3 minutes at the podium, so we have to be brief. So for the first minute, and that's all you get, I'm going to give you some positive feedback, but then I have to get on to some other issues. I want to give compliments to Stephanie and Lisa and Linda for doing the Shadow Student Day. Last time, I haven't spoken since the last time, so I want to thank you for taking our students up on their offer, and also Amy Dennis and Michelle Dillard for also, there probably were others, but those were the ones who tweeted us and tagged us on Twitter, so if there are others, thank you also for participating. I also want to compliment Chris, Chuck, and Diane for being out at the community meetings for the middle school proposal. It was great to see them out listening to listening to the stakeholder feedback and making sure that their perspective is well-rounded and boots on the ground feedback and understanding. And then I also, as Chris mentioned, saw him at the Most Likely to Succeed premiere or screening, and I would like to encourage everyone to see it. It does provide some out-of-the-box thinking. JCTA is putting it on, and March 29th is your last chance to see it while it's in town. Kudos also to Lisa and Linda for holding out on the decision tonight. I know it was a difficult one, and I appreciate the hard questions that you asked. And also along the positive feedback side, I'm confident that the proposal is still in the shaping up form, and that we will be able to find a principal, just like when we had 2.5 years ago when we had a situation come up and we came in and we said principal first. I really do think it's important that the principal who's going to be leading the charge is the person who devises the plan. So I'm actually kind of glad that it's still a little bit sketchy, because you wanted to know whose throat to choke. Well, the person who designs the plan and is responsible for falling on the sword should be that principal, because if they're going to be held accountable for its performance, they need to be in on it, have the buy-in and commitment and ownership of the plan. So I'm hoping that we're going to bring in someone dynamic and strong and powerful to lead that charge. I would like to encourage you to get someone who's willing to buck the system and not be a administrative puppet, if you will. Somebody who's willing to stand up for their students, even if it means going against the grain. That's what priority schools need in order to come out of their priority status and hit that turnaround. And we need to have a district that welcomes and encourages strong feedback and not just kowtowing.
I liked how Diane came up with the summer bridge. We need to brainstorm more. Things like summer bridge could come from having more upfront opportunities to brainstorm in these types of meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adelman. The last speaker is Buffy Sexton. Buffy Sexton speaking on sacred cows.
Short person. Dear JCPS, 3 months ago, we presented you with a binder full of letters from parents, teachers, and students sharing valuable feedback from across the district. Feedback on items that stakeholders felt had been missing from your radar. An entire section of that binder was devoted to bullying and discipline concerns. Our data indicates that these issues have escalated. Sorry. Oh, I lost my place. I'm sorry. Our data indicates that these issues have escalated in recent weeks. We feel that it is only prudent that we make you aware of this trend. We have multiple theories as to why this has come to crisis level as of late. There are a number of sacred cows that continue to remain unaddressed. These include bullying and discipline, not just by students, but also by administrators in some environments, a culture of fear, and the shell games of priority schools, high-stakes testing, and more. This culture of fear prevents well-meaning teachers and staff from speaking up on behalf of their students. Many have experienced retribution or have seen it done to others, and as a result, do not raise issues when necessary. These problems continue to build, and good ideas and feedback go unheard. When a problem is identified, the proverbial stuff rolls downhill. This type of fear-based culture is toxic and leads to more problems going unaddressed, swept under the rug. The fear of negative repercussions or impact to the data that keeps that stuff rolling on downhill. The last stop is the teacher or staff member. That leads to decreased morale and increased turnover, which, as you know, is detrimental to the end user, our student. This continues until the proverbial stuff eventually hits the fan, such as we've seen on social media or in the examples provided, which you may not have seen. We believe the desire to send the sunshine upstream that high-level administrators truly don't know. Whether district leaders are aware of this or not, it's happening, and this vicious cycle continues and can spiral downward. We believe the community has lost faith in our district's ability to manage these urgent matters. People with the means are pulling their kids out of public schools. Charter advocates are waiting in the wings with bated breath. We are in crisis, and this situation will not go away without some fairly drastic measures. First step is to admit that you have a problem. Take an inventory of the hard-to-face items and make a commitment to face them head-on. Stop the endless spin and rhetoric that has become meaningless and all too common. This tendency to sweep issues under the rug in order to keep the public perception positive, unfortunately, puts our organization in the uncomfortable position to bring more and more examples of these problems to your attention. We would really rather see the district say, yes, we have a problem, and here are the challenges we are facing in trying to solve it. Instead of bringing these examples, Dear JCPS would be first in line to say, how can we help?
Thank you, Ms. Sexton. That concludes our speakers this evening. There is no need for an executive session. And if there is a motion to adjourn, we will adjourn. Ms. Horn moves. Is there a second? All right. Dr. Wilner, all in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned.
I don't know. I called it right. I was speaking at 4 o'clock today.